Here comes. And Witt yanks it fouled on the left side.
Ooh, down 2-1 pitch.
Here we go. Right-handed hitter Witt, the pitch. And Witt swings and a fly ball. Left center field.
Did he get it?
Do it? It is off the wall.
Oh, my, the
right
middle of the wall.
Bullpen, just to the left of the 410. And your winner of the 2024 Home Run Derby, Teoscar Hernandez out-duels Bobby Witt Jr. to win it.
That's what it sounded like last night on ESPN Radio with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Home Run Derby came and went, and it took forever. By the end of that thing, the only guys that were still remaining on the field, the only players were the teammates of the guys that were participating in last night's Home Run Derby. Alex, in the end, it was good. Like, Hernandez versus Bobby Witt Jr., there was a lot of anticipation. You get down to the final swing. Like, there was some real drama that took place. But I think they messed up the format. I think they messed this up again. I think they had the perfect format. The best possible version of the Home Run Derby was 8 guys in it going head-to-head in the first round, and then you basically have a bracket style up until the championship. Is it fair? No. It's the bleeping Home Run Derby, man. Of course it's not going to be fair.
I want fair.
You don't come to the Home Run Derby for fairness.
But this just simply took too long. And I am somebody that still enjoys the Home Run Derby. I think it's still fun. But when the guys that are a part of it and their teammates and then everybody else that's like at the All-Star game that's attending it, that is a part of it, says, not worth my time. I think I'm going to go ahead and head out. That tells you everything you need to know. There wasn't the same buzz early on in that event as you would typically anticipate. And part of that is Pete Alonso not making it out of the first round. But a lot of it was it just took too long. When you have the head-to-head in the first round, if you get one more home run than the guy you're going up against, boom, round over. We don't have to do the entirety of that first round. Last night you did. I think they messed it up. I liked the bonus round, the way that they restructured that. Instead of having 60 seconds for each player, having just a few outs. But the format itself, I think they missed on. I think they swung and missed last night.
Yeah, I liked the bonus round, too, because like it always felt like you were just adding more time to it, and it drug on, and it's like, cool, you got 4 pitches to deal with if you hit the one the deep enough distance. Otherwise, you're going to get 3 pitches. That one was a little bit more enjoyable. It lost me. It lost me by the second round because it felt like it was taking so long. Now, I got back to it once you saw what the final was going to be, and there was some excitement, but there was no ability to grasp you from start to finish of that. And I'm with you. I loved the way that they used to do it, where it was just a big bracket and you just go all the way straight through to the final.
With that.
Yeah.
That was the right way to go about it.
If they would have done that with this bonus round, I think you're talking about a perfect Home Run Derby for people to stay involved with. I mean, it was like 10:30 by the time that thing was done, and that thing should not have taken
9:55. I wrote it down. 9:55 is when that thing ended.
It should not take almost 3 hours to get through a Home Run Derby. So it just unfortunately lost me because I was excited to watch it. It's like one of the skills events at All-Star weekends that I look forward to. But, man, when you get dragging on like that, it's hard to stay focused.
I typically like the Home Run Derby, and I don't know why, but this year, like, I watched the first round. I agree. I think the format, they had it perfect last year. But, man, I watched the first round, and I turned it off. I was like, I just can't do this. It felt long. I felt like the first round dragged out forever. And I don't know if it's just me. I felt like there was a lack of, like, star power for the Home Run Derby. And I don't say that as, like, trying to downplay the status of Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt Jr. because those guys are legitimate studs. But like once Pete Alonso was eliminated, I was like, okay, I think I'm done with the Home Run Derby. Well, I'll just see who in the morning wins this thing. Turns out Teoscar Hernandez did. But I could really care less. I thought last night was kind of a dud for the Home Run Derby. And it's the first time I've felt that in a real long time. It reminds me of like a couple of years ago when I finally said, okay, the dunk contest's not really it for me anymore.
I nearly had a winner last night. We gave our pick yesterday, Alex. You had Alonso. I had Bobby Witt Jr. I thought we were going to get there. I thought any of you that were following our pick on who was going to win that derby, I was like, oh, this was a bit of a long shot here, too. Alonso was plus 365. It's a nice little payout there. If you bet on Teoscar Hernandez, I think it was like 11-1. That was a nice little payout for you yesterday if that's the route you went. We got a bunch of texts. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Guys, talk about the anthem. Guys, please open up with the anthem today. You have to open with the anthem.
I thought the anthem was great. I don't know what everybody's talking about. I felt patriotic listening to it.
Alex, I
Something.
There are a lot of people that really like cringe comedy, right? It's something
that's The Office for me. It's why I love The Office so much.
It's hard for me sometimes.
Yeah.
It makes me want to curl into a ball, like the Tots.
Scott's Tots.
Oh
yeah,
that episode.
No, the dinner party still to this day makes me pause the movie in the middle of it.
It literally hurt me to watch that.
Yeah.
And so last night, as we turn on the Home Run Derby, I hear the anthem, and I look over at my wife Karen. I said, "What is going on? Is this lady an actual singer? Like who is this?" If you missed it, here's what it sounded like.
Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, o'er the land of the free.
There it is. Didn't know where you were going. Oh, it's still going.
I couldn't do it, man. It hurt me.
That first portion, I was like,
legitimately hurt
okay.
me.
That first portion, I was like, okay, that's not
No,
great.
it's the
but
last-
not bad.
the last
it's the
part's
last
the worst.
bit that's bad.
Yeah, the dismount was just 1 out of 10.
I just want to know, like, they do sound checks for this stuff.
Apparently not.
I don't think soundtracks
Yeah.
matter, to be honest with you. That's her.
I know, but at some point, if you're Major League Baseball and you hear her doing this during the sound check, you've got to have a conversation about, hey,
We're just going to hire a band.
we can't do
Look,
this.
I mean, they do sound checks for Enterprise Center when they do the national anthem, and like there are times where you hear it and it's like, you can't sing that, and she believes that she is an incredible singer.
She's a like multi-time Grammy-nominated artist.
Hard to believe after that.
Completely agree, but listening to what she just did, and like I was sitting in the room with my wife too. We were doing bedtime, and my wife like majored in vocal performance. She's like, that woman doesn't know what tone she wants to go with.
I genuinely thought there was like something wrong, like something had happened.
I thought I heard it wrong because I was cooking dinner when it started, so I'm kind of off away from my TV, and I can just like hear it in the background. And in my head, I'm going, "It must be that I'm far away."
Dude, she was like, she hit one note, was like, nope, can't get to that. Nope, let's go to this one. Nope, gonna go to another one. Like it was all over the place.
I believe we could have done a better job.
So
we sing "Believe It or Not." BK really drags us down.
I think we should have a national.
He's not that
That's
bad.
true. No,
no, I am that bad, but I don't think I'm that bad.
There was a lot of groaning into the microphone. It didn't really sound like singing. It was
a lot of texters saying it was more moaning than groaning.
Yeah.
In their personal,
Some would say
opinions.
it's the same thing.
Touche. So I think there were 2 other anthems in recent memory that rose up to that level of cringe. Alex, one you brought up this morning.
Oh man, I watched this one like 17 times yesterday.
So, the Carl Lewis national anthem. During an NBA game, this is between the Bulls and the Nets. Just give it a listen.
Oh, say, can you see? And the Rockets, red flag. Uh-oh. I'll make up for it now. For the land of the free.
That doesn't even sell it too, because in the beginning he says he holds the O part for a good 8 seconds before he even starts the anthem. They panned to Michael Jordan in that one, and he's got to put his head in his jersey.
It's a little different. Oh, man. It's not a recording artist that is doing that. It's a sprinter.
Oh, man. That was so good.
Now, my personal favorite. And part of it was because of the backdrop, which was a bunch of NBA players who just couldn't keep their cool at the All-Star game. Fergie.
Came through that night, that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star spangled banner
here's the thing with the Fergie one. And I agree, that's just awful. But Fergie was trying to spin the national anthem into
100%.
another song.
She made it into a pop song.
But like tone-wise, she was hitting every single note that she's supposed to. If you go back to listen to the one to last night, she couldn't hit a note. She was all over the place.
That's the difference. Fergie's was weird because it was unexpected.
Yes.
And it was different. And it was like, dude, what are you trying to do
She
here?
sounded like she was trying to come out with a new album of the national anthem.
Last night was just bad. It was like when you have... Like you like AJR, right, T-Bone? They're like an electronic band. And so you know when you go to a concert, hey, this probably isn't going to sound like the band that I hear when I'm listening to them on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever it is that you listen to them on. Or maybe you're checking them out on YouTube as we are right now, youtube.com/101ESPN Whatever the case, you know what you're getting into when you're going into that kind of a concert. I don't know anything about the lady that sang last night. Literally nothing other than they announced her as a multi-time Grammy Award nominated artist. I would have assumed something that sounded a little different than this.
At that moment, she was like, nope, can't hit that note.
Oh, God.
Man, I would, if anything, she did a great job of getting people to go look at her album because I immediately after that I said, who is this chick?
Does
and
she
I
have good, like,
no,
does she sound?
I mean, it sounds just like that. It's kind of, and
It's
this
like
is
a whiny,
yeah, it's like
nasally-
whisper pop is what it is right now. Like, who's the other artist that does that where she like
no
whispers
idea.
into the microphone? I don't know what her name is. But anyway, I sounded like an old person when I tweeted out last night, like kids these days with their music. But that was like whisper pop. I don't understand it.
Whisper pop? Yeah. I've never heard of this.
It's like a pop song. And
Billie Eilish? Is that her name?
Billie Eilish, thank you. Yeah. Where she whispers, oh, say,
Can I be honest? Not a big Billie Eilish fan. Carol
Me neither.
loves her.
Me neither.
It doesn't do
She's
anything
got one or
for
two
me.
good songs I like.
She's a talented songwriter.
But she just whispers.
It's not for me.
Yeah, she just whispers.
I
And
get
that's
it.
what this is.
Pop,
Until
not
she
for me.
actually had to hit a note. And then it was like, oh, no.
I'm more impressed that BK was able to come up with Billie Eilish with just the
I'm
phrase
glad.
of
For whisper pop.
I was like,
thinking
I'm
in my
trying
head
to
like,
understand. I looked up
her?
whisper pop, and I
Did she pop up?
There was a picture of her on it, and I was like,
Hey, look at me go. I can genre music.
Ariana Grande is considered whisper pop?
Oh, yeah. So that's another one. Yeah.
I don't like Ariana Grande. Maybe I'm just not a whisper pop fan.
That's what I'm saying.
Or a
Kids,
pop fan.
That's what I'm saying. Kids these days with their music. Am I right? I don't need to whisper. I want to hear Fergie hit
I
her
still
notes.
like some of the music that people hear on like the top 40 stations. That ain't it.
Oh.
I don't know what that is. That ain't it.
Ingrid, what was her name? Ingrid
I never want to hear it again.
Andress.
I don't know.
Yeah, she's got a.
I
don't
think
wanna
we
think
give her
about
a
her again.
second shot at next year's All-Star.
apparently
Please
she's a country music star. Would have
What?
never
That's
guessed
your
that
person.
one.
Those are
no,
your
that's
people,
not
dude.
my people. No,
She's in your life.
I am a different country type
You
of
gotta
person.
claim her.
This is not the country that I like.
All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to talk about the Cardinals draft with Eric Longenhagen. He writes about prospects for FanGraphs. He had the Cardinals first-round pick as his #1 overall player in this year's draft, so we'll talk to him about that coming up at 11:30. But next, T-Bone's big mad today, and it has to do with Ryan Helsley. He'll explain why next here on 101 ESPN.
Uh-oh. I'll make up for it now.
Hey, it's BK for my friends over at Victory Men's Health, and it is time to unlock your inner champion. They can do that for you if you book online right now at victorymenshealth.com. Super easy process. Put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them a little bit about yourself, what it is that you're trying to unlock for your inner champion today. Do you wake up in the morning and say to yourself, man, I I don't have the same energy that I once did. I just don't feel the same way. I'm not getting the same results out of my workouts. Those could be potential symptoms of low testosterone. They can help you out with that at Victory Men's Health. It's also possible you just have some vitamin deficiencies, and they'll find that out with your first blood draw when you go in there, and that's what I did. A few weeks ago, went into Victory Men's Health. They took my blood, came back about a week later, found out all of my different numbers, and it turns out I was a little low on vitamin B12, vitamin D, helped me out with my iron deficiency as well. They can do that for you. They can help you out with potential erectile dysfunction issues, weight loss, low testosterone. Check them out today. 4 great locations across the St. Louis area and at victorymenshealth.com. T-Bone's big mad today. We got a text last night, Alex.
You upset about the national anthem too, man? Sorry, man.
I'm upset about a lot of
singers these days, am I right?
T-Bone's, I don't know. We got to find a
T-Bone's auto-tune tantrum.
T-Bone's terrible takes.
Well, those are every day.
I know I'm supposed to be like, but it's an exhibition, but this makes me mad. May never get a chance to pitch in an all-star game again, and you choose not to when you could. Pisses me off. That was the text we got yesterday from one Tanner Hendrickson as he sent us the news from Derek Gould that Ryan Helsley has opted out of this year's All-Star game.
Unbelievable.
Which means that the Cardinals, I believe, will be the only team that has 0 representatives active in this year's All-Star game. I can't imagine that has happened in recent memory for the St. Louis Cardinals, but I'll have somebody else that's better at this look that up for me. T-Bone, why are you mad at Ryan Helsley for opting out of the All-Star game?
Because it's a privilege to be at the All-Star game.
Bone to pick. Somebody says that's the new
bone to pick. Oh my God, yes.
Thanks, text
What
line.
a segment.
It's such a privilege to be an All-Star, and if you're healthy and not playing in it,
that is such an old person thing to say.
The All-Star game in baseball is the best one going, and there's like no close second. And guys like Ryan Helsley are the ones that ruin the other ones, where they decide they don't want to give 100% or they don't want to play in it when they're healthy. It's an honor to be an All-Star. It's a privilege to be an All-Star. You know how many baseball players have played the sport and never gotten the taste of an All-Star game? And this guy's healthy, is going to throw 15 pitches at the max probably, and he can't go out there and throw one bleeping inning. Oh, it just irks me because I love the MLB All-Star Game. I love getting to see the best stars out there playing in this one because they're actually trying. You can't go 90% at baseball. You're the 100% or you're not there because you're hurt. And Helsley's neither of those because he's not going to pitch in it tonight, which just, I can't tell you how much this angers me. And it's all for one extra day of rest. Oh,
You know what, BK? They don't honor the game.
This was the ultimate Helsley move. I should have seen it coming.
So here's the list of pitchers that were put into this year's All-Star game. Max Fried, Tyler Glasnow, Hunter Green, Ryan Helsley, Jeff Hoffman, Shota Imanaga, Reynaldo Lopez, Chris Sale, Tanner Scott, Paul Skeens, Matt Strom, Ranger Suarez, Robert Suarez, Logan Webb, Zach Wheeler, Kyle Finnegan. Whew. The reason I read that list is because there was a decent chance that Ryan Helsley wasn't going to throw anyways.
Some of those guys aren't pitching because Glasnow's hurt. And some of them, if you're a starter and you don't pitch in the All-Star game because you just pitched, like Sale, for example, I get it. I don't want Chris Sale throwing after he threw on whatever day it was, Sunday.
Sure. It's
Helsley would have
also
appeared.
an inning for those guys that you just mentioned. And they could do it because this is typically what they would do as in terms of like just a bullpen day, right? We've seen that before. I have no problem with it because if Ryan Helsley is saying, hey, my commitment is to the St. Louis Cardinals, not the jersey on the name on the back of my jersey, shouldn't that be something that we all celebrate? Like Ryan Helsley is putting team above himself. That's what he's doing here. He's saying, I need to be healthy for my team to succeed in the second half. And I would assume we all agree with that assessment. I don't think the Cardinals are doing anything if Ryan Helsley ain't 100% in the second half of the season. He in the first half had one of the highest percentage of the Cardinals wins. Like if you go save by percentage of wins for your team, Helsley was like top 3 in the history of Major League Baseball in the first half of the season. They need him desperately. He broke the first half record for saves by a Cardinal, I believe, this year. Like that dude's super important to what they're doing, has been used a ton. I'm totally fine with him saying, I'm going to take this week to just not throw. In fact, I kind of like it. I think it's really great for the Cardinals that he decided to go about it this way. Now, if he wanted to go out there and throw, cool. I got no issues with that either. But I have 0% of me that is upset about this decision. 0%.
Yeah, I actually don't either, especially for what you just said of him breaking a record in the first half. I don't think you need to pitch in the All-Star game to be recognized as an All-Star. Like, you know what you did, and I think that showcases it. I'll give you my tinfoil theory, my tinfoil Ferrario theory when I saw it pop out. This has nothing to do with Ryan Helsley's decision, and the Cardinals came to him and said, you're not pitching at the All-Star game. Because the Cardinals know that the only way they're going to have success in the second half is if Ryan Helsley is healthy. And they probably said, like, hey, if you want to, fine, but we would strongly urge you to rest that arm over the next 4 days before the second half begins. And maybe Helsley had a say in it, but the tinfoil part came in for me when found out that his entire family was out there to watch him pitch. And then it was like, oh, hey, I'm not pitching anymore because I don't want to. Just a tinfoil. But overall, I think it was smart of Ryan Helsley not to pitch because let's say you go out there for one inning and something happens. That would be...
the odds are low.
Of course, but it would be detrimental to the team. And what's more impactful for the Cardinals is 4 days off completely for Ryan Helsley, who's still at the All-Star game, who's still at all the festivities, who still is recognized as an All-Star, but it's resting that arm just like starters who pitched right prior to the All-Star game that will not pitch at the All-Star game.
Somebody said from the 314, I've lost respect for him. I agree with T-Bone.
Yes.
T-Bone texted that in. I saw him on his phone.
I mean, he still gets the honor of being an All-Star.
Take it away.
It still shows up next to his name that he was an All-Star.
His All-Star or his Wikipedia baseball reference page, like it'll show Ryan Helsley 2024 All-Star, and he was a more than deserving All-Star this season. I don't think he was going to get hurt if he pitched. Would that extra day of rest have really meant the world to him? I don't know, is my honest to God answer. If he's feeling like, hey, I need a full week of just rest and relaxation before we get geared up for the final 70-ish games of the regular season, cool, man. If that's what you deem to be important for you to be the best version of yourself in the second half, I'm totally cool with that for Ryan Helsley. So I didn't have an issue with it at all. It does mean that my anticipation, if I'm a Cardinals fan for tonight, is a little different. Like, that's the one guy that you had that is from your team that you would have enjoyed watching tonight. So it does become a little different in terms of your connection to the game, I would imagine. But for me, like my most anticipated matchup prior to Ryan Helsley's decision to opt out of the game and since that is still Paul Skeens going up against Aaron Judge. And what I'm going to be really curious about tonight is how they manage that. because Aaron Judge is batting 4th in the American League lineup. And if Skeens does what Skeens typically does and gets out of the first inning with 3 batters, they got to bring him back out for the 4th batter.
I'd say
you have to have that matchup.
I'd say don't get your hopes up. They said it's going to be 1 inning, and if you want to see him against Judge, then intentionally walk somebody. If they said 1 inning, and I would almost guarantee the Pirates had a thought in saying that as well, you're going to get 1 inning of Paul Skeens.
Bruce Bochy's the AL manager, right? Because the Rangers were in the World Series last year. Bruce, what the hell are we hitting Stephen Kwan 1 for? Give the people what they want. Hits Judge 1, Soto 2, and whoever the hell's third. Gunnar Henderson, I think, is in the top 3 as well.
Henderson, Soto, Judge.
Yeah. What happened, Bruce?
Have you seen Stephen Kwan's numbers this season?
Yeah, whatever. Like, hit him at the bottom of the order. What the people want to see is Skeens versus Judge.
Marcus Simeon's at the bottom for good reasons.
I need them to intentionally walk one of the top 3.
They should walk Kwan.
Just so that way I can get
How great would that be?
that matchup of Judge versus Skeens.
The first at bat of the All-Star game, and Paul Skeens is like, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get to questions and answers. But next, we've got some questions for Eric Longenhagen. He writes about the prospects for FanGraphs. He said the Cardinals got his #1 prospect in this year's draft by picking at number 7. He'll explain why next. You're on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night was Major League Baseball's Home Run Derby as Teoscar Hernandez took home the crown, and tonight will be the MLB All-Star Game, and we'll have coverage here on 101 ESPN starting at 6 o'clock when you can hear pregame here and the pitching matchup for tonight's All-Star Game, Paul Skeens versus Corbin Burns. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
First 2 days of Major League Baseball's draft have officially come and went. The Cardinals had the number 7 overall selection. That's the headliner. They got J.J. Weatherholt. Yesterday, we talked to his coach at West Virginia. Today, we talked to a prospect analyst for FanGraphs who had him ranked as the number 1 player in this year's draft, and that prospect analyst is Eric Longenhagen, who joins us now via the 101 ESPN hotline. Eric, we appreciate the time as always, man. You wrote in your write-up after the first round that the Cardinals got your top-rated player at number 7. The time the restaurants close in the city. That is not a very nice thing to say about our beloved city here in St. Louis, but we appreciate it nonetheless. Tell us a little bit about what the Cardinals are getting in J.J. Weatherholt.
Hey, guys, how's it going? J.J. Weatherholt, look, he came into the spring as my top-rated guy, dealt with a hamstring issue during the course of his junior year, missed about 6 weeks. And then when he came back, he was only fine. It was not a big leap in performance relative to his sophomore year. And it's just about whether you think that's due to the lingering impact of the hamstring injury, just time away from playing. He's still excellent player. But when you're looking at that top tier of guys, I think you could justify taking any of that, first cluster of guys first. I'm more the type who wants to look at the entire body of work. And I thought Weatherholt was clearly the best guy entering the spring. And I'm willing to believe that that hamstring issue is part of why he was only fine relative to his sophomore year as a junior. He's the only guy at the very, very top of the class from those college performers who does a little bit of everything. Travis Bazzana is not a very good defensive second baseman. Charlie Condon has swing and miss issues that I think are going to be more exposed in pro baseball. And so with Weatherholt, it's, do you think that the downtick or the plateau is caused by the hamstring issue and the time away? And in my opinion, yes, it was. And I thought, that he allayed some of those concerns late in the year and even played some shortstop, which I don't necessarily think he can do at the big league level, but that's been true of a lot of Cardinals players who ended up doing it. And so, I really, really love J.J. Weatherholt. I think he's going to move quickly and be an integral part of the big league team pretty soon.
Eric, the big thing that we heard a couple of days ago when he was picked 7th overall was he is above average at everything. Everything that J.J. Weatherholt does translate to the major league level. Is that kind of what you see from him as a guy that can pretty much be a 5-tool type of player?
Yeah, I think we're approaching that, right? Maybe not like Mike Trout type 5 tools where every tool is cranked to 10. But yeah, very well rounded, up the middle fit on defense, probably going to go out at shortstop. And the thing that you want to see translate is power. You think this guy's going to hit? It's just about how much power is there going to be, especially if he does end up playing second base. If you look at his spray chart from sophomore year to junior year, there is less pull power. And it was just a weird thing that you look at the spray chart and there's just fewer pull shots on his register. And is that about him coming back from his injury and his timing is not there, or is there something happening with his swing that needs to be tweaked to make sure that he's getting to that power more readily the way he was as a sophomore? Those are the things that, I think early on here as he gets going, and maybe not necessarily the rest of this summer. I assume that he'll go to an affiliate for the rest of the summer, but really coming into next spring, has there been a tweak to his swing that is identifiable that might lead to a change in the nature of his contact that will help him get to that power? That's the one question, in my mind, but nothing, no plus tool necessarily. athletically, but just like above average at everything, and super polished, and like a very driven kid who plays great in the room when you're meeting with him. Like, you really believe that this is someone who's hungry for this, and baseball's such a grind that's basically a prereq.
Eric Longenhagen is our guest here on 101 ESPN. You can read about all of his great work on this year's draft and prospects in general over at fangraphs.com. It is well worth your time. Eric, you mentioned the thing that I feel like is probably the number one analysis that I've seen about J.J. Weatherholt, which is, he's not great at any one thing, but he's pretty darn good at everything. And the last Cardinals prospect I heard that about was Dylan Carlson, who was just a really well-rounded player that it felt like everybody agreed, hey, he's going to be like a 10-year big leaguer that's going to be plug and play, put him in your outfield, maybe never makes like an all-star game, but you always love having him out there. And it obviously has not worked out with Dylan Carlson in that way. What are some of the pitfalls of a prospect profile like that potentially for J.J. Weatherholt?
Just that Major League Baseball is so unbelievably hard that the people who end up being superstar level players at in the majors are almost always elite physically in some way, and that like you never are really truly tested, especially if you're a hitter, until you get there. And what it takes to be exceptional at that level is just so many different variables. And with Carlson, like he was advanced, he was polished. Especially if you're looking at a spreadsheet and you see his age relative to his performance, it really lights you up because the algorithm doesn't know what Dylan Carlson is built like. It can't assess his level of athleticism and twitch. Not really. It just knows he's 20 when he's coming up. And so it assumes a certain level of projectability that most 20-year-olds have bodily, athletically, and it just wasn't there for Dylan Carlson. With Weatherholt, he's already older than Carlson was when he came up, essentially. Weatherholt's yoked, like maybe too much, to the point where he is that tight in his lower body, and maybe that's where some of the this hamstring issue popped up. I live in Arizona. I watch Ketel Marte all the time. Weatherholt's not that jacked quite yet, but he is on his way there. When you arrive at campus looking the way he did and leave it looking the way he does, J.J. Weatherholt has been in the weight room, and I think he has a different level of physicality that is more, evocative of an impact big leaguer than what Dylan Carlson did.
If J.J. Weatherholt is the player that you think he can be, Eric, and he reaches that ceiling, what does that look like, in your opinion, at the big league level?
I think, from in FanGraphs parlance, from like a wins above replacement standpoint, it's like a 3-WAR player on annually. I think like what Josh Smith is doing in Texas this year so far is what it looks like. I think it's like well-rounded, up the middle player. If you want to put him at shortstop, what Bryson Stott has done in Philly, what J.P. Crawford has done in Seattle, especially of late. Dansby Swanson's career, where there are like years with peak power like that, and good defense would be what happens if he can stay at shortstop. And at second base, it is more in that, I don't think he's going to become like Marcus Semien or anything like that, where there's like, an MVP level season with 30-some homers, but like what Johnny India has done in Cincinnati, what Jordan Westberg is doing in Baltimore, that is like the template. Jake Cronenworth in San Diego. There are some years where the power is not exceptional, but like he's making enough contact, he's playing good defense. There's still a lot happening. Jairo Estrada, it's just a good, well-rounded player. Might have an all-star season or two in him in that first 6-year window, but is otherwise just, if we're looking at the second base group as a whole at the major league level, I expect J.J. Weatherholt to be like player 10, 15, from that position group in that area.
So, Eric, when now that he's selected and now that he's a Cardinal, what does his selection do to the Cardinals prospect pool? Because I think us in St. Louis have talked a lot about how it seems they have a lot of up-and-comers. Does that take them to another level when they put Weatherholt in there?
I don't know that there's that type of ceiling that this is like going to move where everybody just added a good player, right? So everyone's farm system ranking on the site sort of holds. The thing that really moves the system as a whole is player development. When you are taking guys in the third, through seventh round, and those guys become dudes, like the way Quinn Matthews has become a dude, that's what moves, the overall quality of your system. But, at least the way we do, well, I do, farm system rankings at FanGraphs, a 50-grade player, especially when, everybody at the top of the draft has just added one of those, it doesn't move the system as a whole in a big way, I don't think. I think that, the Cardinal system in general is a little shy of average. It is flush with pitching. I think, Chase Davis not doing well out the gate this year has, hurt the way the system looks because it doesn't really have, Mason Wynn has graduated. There's not really an impact hitter at the top other than Weatherholt. But yeah, I think really the way you make your money as far as the farm system as a whole is concerned is developing the guys you take in the middle rounds.
Eric, final question that I've got for you. Eric Longenhagen joining us here on 101 ESPN. Read his work over at fangraphs.com. You can read his Cardinals top prospects. You can read all of the breakdown, and there's been a lot of it on this year's draft as well. If you're interested in just the Cardinals picks or baseball as a whole, he's got all of that for you at fangraphs.com. When you look at the Cardinals top prospects pitching-wise right now, there's been a lot of spotlight on the Double-A rotation, which right now includes Cooper Jerpe, it includes Quinn Matthews, who you just mentioned, and Tink Hence. When you look at that trio, Eric, what does the upside look like there? What do the Cardinals potentially have in those three?
Yeah, I think with Tink, it's so variable what's going to happen. I mean, there are times during his career when Tink has looked like, the second coming of Roy Oswalt, where it is that extreme drop and drive delivery, monster uphill fastball, upper 90s, huge tailing changeup, just so much velocity separation off of the fastball. And then there are times when he doesn't throw strikes and it looks like it's going to be that type of guy just in the bullpen. With Quinn Matthews, I mean, goodness, I saw tons of Quinn at Stanford. He's definitely gotten so much stronger. His thighs and his butt are so much bigger and stronger now than when that kid was at Stanford. And his pants were just kind of hanging off of him. And he's not being asked to throw 140 pitches every Friday night anymore. And I do think the spike in stuff that he has had is real and meaningful. And that guy's going to be a playoff team's – that guy's makes a playoff team's postseason rotation the way he looks right now. And then Jerpe, look, it's weird. It's weird in a good way. It's weird in Chris Sale kind of way in terms of the mechanical look. His stuff is not that nasty, but I think at the very least, Cooper Jerpe is one of those long relievers who comes in the middle of the game. It's super funky. Hitters can't see it. They're not used to a look like this in the middle of the game, and that guy comes in and gets 4 to 6 outs in a big spot. Not a monster part of your rotation by any stretch, but it's a good guy to have on your pitching staff. Everybody needs a fireman like that to come in the middle of the game and get you from inning 5, 6 to inning 7, 8, and I think that's what Cooper Jerpe has in store for him.
Hey, Eric, we appreciate all the insight into the Cardinals system and to what they were able to acquire over the weekend in their first-round pick. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today. Enjoy the rest of the draft today, man.
Thank you, guys. See ya.
You got it. That's Eric Longenhagen joining us here on 101 ESPN. Always appreciate his time. He really does great work over at FanGraphs. And for those not familiar with the story, previously worked in Major League Baseball with the Phillies as well. So he is legitimately plugged in. He scouts these guys on his own. He goes out and does the work in person. It's not just, on a keyboard behind fangraphs.com. He's looking into the data, but he's also a traditional scout. So he's got all of that background. This isn't just some random dude that's doing this for you. I thought his breakdown on J.J. Weatherholt was refreshing because it wasn't selling you something that's not real.
He didn't say Jose Ramirez is what you're getting.
Exactly.
He named a ton of dudes that honestly I was like, okay.
It sounded like Brendan Donovan plus.
Yeah.
Is what you're talking about. A better defensive second baseman than Brendan Donovan, who maybe doesn't get on base quite as much, hits for a little bit more power. He's just kind of the sliders, if you will, where you're when you're playing NCAA football, for example, and you used to be able to do the creative player, where you got the sliders, 99 overall here, 20 overall there, whatever. Weatherholt's 80 on everything. Pretty good. Not on the 20 to 80 scale, but 80 out of 100.
That goes to show you, though, how weak this draft was.
100%.
Because if that was his best player, and you're talking about probably the comp of Brendan Donovan, I mean, that's what this draft was.
Yeah. And that's where we're at. I did think that what he said about this year's AA rotation was interesting as well. I mean, he gave you some upside there. Like he sounds more excited about the starting pitching that they have currently in AA than he does about what they just got at number 7 overall. Like there's potentially more upside there, but there's more certainty in what they just got at number 7 overall.
You're an analytics guy. Like you study those. Is there a measurement of butt to leg ratio for a pitcher? Because like hockey players, Joey tells me all the time, he's got a butt that a hockey player needs, you know? I didn't realize that you needed a good butt as a pitcher.
Absolutely.
You could lower third. Look at Spencer Strider.
Huh? What he said about Weatherholt, by the way.
Well, I mean, you don't have to just watch him pitch.
Have you seen his quads?
Yeah,
Look at Walker Quadzilla. I'm serious.
Well,
it's
now
Walker Bueller.
Well, now Quinn Matthews is going to be noticed bootylicious, apparently.
I mean, Bueller wears the tight pants for a reason.
Yeah.
He wants to show off what he's got going on in his legs.
I'm jealous. Looking forward to talking to them. Maybe can we get Quinn Matthews on?
I did find it interesting what he brought up immediately when I said, hey, you know, Weatherholt compared to Dylan Carlson, like the profile sounds so freaking similar, dude. It is unbelievable how much, like when I hear, and they're different players, obviously, that needs to be stated. But when I hear people talk about Weatherholt, it reminds me so much of the things that people were saying about Carlson when Carlson was a prospect. And when he said, yeah, the difference is one of them is built like a major leaguer. Dude, go to a baseball game, go to BP, and look on the field. And this is no shot against Dylan Carlson. I am built very similarly to Dylan Carlson. It just looks different, man. When you're looking on the field, there are certain guys that look a little different. And it sounds like Weatherholt's going to be one of those guys. Doesn't mean he's going to be good. Doesn't mean he's going to be bad. But there's potentially more upside there based on the quick twitch, the athleticism, all of that different stuff. All right, coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN.
Size and his butt are so much bigger and stronger now.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers you get. If you guys have any questions right now, go ahead and get them in there. Before we get to those, do want to give you an update. This comes from Robert Murray, who does some really good work for Fansided. He wrote that Rich Hill is expected to make a comeback at some point in the second half. He's planning to pitch this year. Wanted to wait for teams to kind of sort themselves. That way he could decide where he wanted to pitch for a contender.
Get ready, Cardinals fans. Yep. Rich Hill, game 2 starter.
You ready? There's your addition.
Man. The amount of...
It's even better than a trade. You don't have to give anything up
The
for
amount
it.
of senior discounts that rotation could get at a buffet is unbelievable.
God, it's so going to happen.
That's
That's what's annoying.
And you don't even need to trade for that guy. All you got to do is throw money at him.
He also added that it's expected to be a very quiet deadline. Doesn't expect to see the Blue Jays, Diamondbacks, or Rangers to sell in any meaningful way. Said the Mets aren't expected to sell. Said, in fact, that the Cubs are also not necessarily seen as a seller at this point because they've been able to finish the first half in a positive direction. So,
and the Cubs one doesn't surprise me because I don't remember who I read this morning, but they probably should sell, but their main piece is hurt in Cody Bellinger with his broken finger.
I don't think they're going to go either way. I don't think they're going to buy. I don't think they're going to sell. I think they're just going to stand pat and see what happens in the offseason. All right, from the 479. Guys, why is it that Major League Baseball is the only sport that does not allow teams to trade draft picks? I hate it. I would think you should be able to trade draft picks.
I agree.
I think at a minimum, you should be able to move up and down in the draft. I think you should be able to move around, and I know that makes things harder for the salary slots. So what? Figure it out. But you know what each pick is worth in Major League Baseball, so you can pretty easily sort through that. These teams have actuaries out the wazoo. You can go ahead and find somebody that can put up an Excel document to find out what your new bonus pool is going to be. So I think they absolutely should be able to trade draft picks. You can trade the comp picks, but that's it right now.
Yeah, if you want more intrigue for baseball's draft, have the ability to trade draft picks because, yes, with the NFL and NBA, you see those players right away. With the NHL, I think the reason the NHL is so exciting for at least NHL fans is because of that possibility of trading up and down. And the fact that you can't put together a third and a fourth round with your first round pick to move up 3 or 4 slots to pick what you want, that takes the intrigue away from those drafts.
See, I actually don't mind where you can't trade.
Why?
Because I just think it's easier to keep track of where my team's picking. You know, like I know the Cardinals are picking.
But wouldn't it have been
7th.
exciting if the Cardinals had a chance to pick 1 yesterday?
Or pick 3. To get one of those pitchers.
In a different draft for, like last year, Skeens is like the top prospect, right? What if your team was picking like 5th? And you were like, hey, what could you package to get up to 1?
Because Pittsburgh didn't want to take him right away.
Yeah, I could really care less for it because a lot of it is like those conversations happen in football. They happen in
happens all the time.
NHL. And like those kind of like massive trades don't really happen all that often.
But they do. Your team has gone up multiple times. They traded up for Jared Goff.
Chicago
right?
did it a couple years ago where they traded to get to the 6th overall
Last
pick.
year's number 1 overall pick was traded to Carolina. Yep. And it ended up with the Bears picking number 1 this year because of last year's draft.
I just like the fact that I can look at a draft board when it gets set and say, okay, the Cardinals have the 7th pick. They're going to be picking 7th. I don't have to keep track of, like in the NBA. I have no idea what the Pacers hold in terms of draft picks.
Yeah, the draft doesn't matter in the NBA after like the 5th pick anyways.
Yeah, I like it this way. I think it's better this way than rather having to keep track of picks.
You wouldn't want the deadline for the Cardinals to be able to trade future picks.
I mean, that's the thing is like I don't think a lot of teams would be trading a lot of future picks. They would hold on to their assets like they hold on to their draft prospects.
Just add like
but with the lottery now,
I think Dave Dombrowski would trade his future picks.
Oh, 100%. So
I think that would make it better.
Padres, I would say the Padres absolutely would do that. But like with the lottery now, the lottery makes those draft picks being traded even more interesting because before it was you trade a pick, you know if that team sucks, you're going to get a great pick. Now with the lottery, you really don't know what you're going to get.
Like the NBA, where
and the NHL.
If you trade a future pick, like the NBA teams trade like 7 years out, right? So like the 2031 picks.
The NBA is too far.
I agree.
Yeah, NHL I think is the sweet spot where it's 3 years out.
If you get right now a pick for the 2031 Boston Celtics, that could be an awesome pick. As like right now, it sounds terrible, but 7 years from now, that might be the team that you want their picks because they've cycled through this version of the team. Some guys are getting older; they look a little different. Like it, I think it can be a positive. I would probably do what the NFL does, where I think it's like 2 drafts out you can trade.
It's 3.
3 drafts out.
Yeah. I like that.
That's the way that I think it should be done. And at a minimum, I would like to see them doing that. Wow,
the Cardinals just signed Rich Hill.
we have some NFL news, some legit NFL news. All-pro wide receiver Brandon Ayuk has officially requested a trade after an offseason of unsuccessful attempts to reach an extension. Despite a recent meeting, the Niners have not been willing to engage in negotiations since May. Ayuk has respectfully asked out.
Man.
And if I am the 49ers, I would respectfully say, see you at training camp.
Man, I should have said in yesterday.
I'm actually not shocked by this news because they didn't give off vibes that they were going to get to a contract extension. Brandon Ayuk's been like doing everything with Jaden Daniels, trying to get his way to Washington. I'm with BK. If I'm San Francisco, you're cool. You're playing this year.
I appreciate that is your perspective.
I think it'll go bad. I think there's a very good chance that this becomes an issue.
How? What's he going to do? Not show up and get fined $50,000 a day during camp and then miss out on the season?
I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about the vibe he brings to the team.
And you don't have a real
Cincinnati was majorly affected last year by injuries, but B.
I think they were affected by the fact that
the contract thing.
You also have
impacted that.
Mr. Irrelevant as a quarterback who that's a tough thing to do, like to be a leader, especially when you got disgruntled weapons in there.
Brandon Ayuk has made $5 million in his NFL career. This year he's slated to make $14 million. That dude's going to come. He's going to play. He's going to make all of his money. He's going to get paid this offseason, and then he can go get his contract elsewhere. I don't think this is going to be a problem for them. They're going to go out there. They're going to be one of the top 3 teams in the NFC, and they'll potentially go to the Super Bowl this year. And if I'm the 49ers, that's my approach. Hey, we've got one of the best coaches in the NFL. We got one of the best receivers in the NFL. This is our all-in season. Let's go do it. That would be my approach if I'm them. I think far too many teams will allow the player to dictate what things are going for. No, man, play hardball. With where you're at in your organization, like if they were the Chargers, yeah, you should trade them. Like whatever. What are we losing out on? Go get the pick.
But dude, that team is in a fragile state to where you've got like a small window of you pouncing on a championship.
You got to win now.
And that's what I'm saying. And if this dude's a locker room problem,
I don't think he's going to be. I think we overstate that stuff. I think he wants a contract. He's going to make $14 million this year, which is 3 times what he's made in his entire NFL career prior to this day.
But he's obviously disgruntled if he's saying, like, you need to pay me and I want out.
Absolutely. And his alternative is to not play and not get paid this year.
I get it, but
he has no choice.
If this was on a team that had a veteran quarterback who I think could handle this situation, I'd be fine with it. You got Brock Purdy.
I think he'll be fine.
I think San Francisco's going to stink this year.
I'm taking the under on their win-loss.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know what it's at, but
I don't think they make it past the second round in the playoffs this year.
I mean, that's fair. Somebody said, that's not news, guys. We knew he wanted out. No, it's officially demanded a trade now. And
look, Adam Schefter wrote words breaking in all caps, so it's news.
Mike Garafolo was the one that originally reported this and said he has officially requested a trade. This is absolutely news. It's big news. And he should be a part of the 49ers this year and be a big part of your fantasy plans as well, because he's going to be awesome. Coming up next, what can the Cardinals do to avoid this kind of offensive inconsistency in the future? We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So, John Mozeliak was on the Bally Sports Midwest broadcast on Saturday, and he was asked a series of questions, including, what was the biggest surprise for you in the first half of this season? Here's what he had to say.
I think probably the one thing that if you had said to me, like, what don't you think will happen back in February, I would have probably said just the inconsistency of our offense. Just the inability to consistently put up the numbers that we thought we were going to do. I think from the offseason strategy of adjusting or addressing our pitching needs from a starting standpoint and a bullpen standpoint, we feel like we've done that. Now, we've got to play 162 games, so there's still a lot of time, but overall, I think our pitching's given us a chance to win almost every game.
Alex, here's the current list of Cardinals players that are at or above league average offensively on the season. It includes Ivan Herrera, who's no longer on the big league roster, Mason Wynn, who's 8% above league average, Brendan Donovan, 15% above league average, Lars Nootbaar at league average, and then Alec Burleson, 25% above league average, and Wilson Contreras, who's been amazing, 60% above league average offensively. End of the list. I did not mention Nolan Gorman. I did not mention Paul Goldschmidt. I did not mention Nolan Arenado. I did not mention a guy that we expected to be a big part of their plans with Jordan Walker. Those were four of what I thought coming into the season, the top 6 hitters in the Cardinals lineup. And for them not to be contributing in a meaningful way offensively this year, I think speaks to the inconsistencies of this offense. That being said, I don't think this is something that they can fix at the trade deadline. Like, they've talked a lot about, hey, we need to get a right-handed bat. Cool. Where's he playing? And how much is he actually impacting what your offense is going to be able to do? They talk about their inconsistencies, their issues against left-handed pitching. Agreed, you've got a problem there. But that's supposed to be Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. They're supposed to help you out in that regard. And I don't see a scenario in which those guys aren't in the everyday lineup. So it's not as if you're going to change what the look of your lineup is in a meaningful way against left-handed pitchers at this year's trade deadline. I think this is more of a long-term conversation than it is a 2024 Cardinals conversation. If John Mozeliak looks at this and says the biggest surprise is we were way too inconsistent again offensively, what lesson should they learn from that, Alex? How do you fix that for future Cardinal seasons?
I mean, the lesson has to be we can't rely on aging veterans to carry our offense, and Goldschmidt and Arenado. And I mean, I know Arenado's younger than what Paul Goldschmidt is, but I mean, that essentially has been their downfall for these last few seasons with the offensive inconsistency. Is you had them at the MVP level and you weren't able to capitalize on that, and ever since then you've seen the decline of Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. But you viewed this as, well, these guys are superstars and we believe they can get back to that level, whereas other teams probably look at that and say, yeah, but you're getting a older Paul Goldschmidt, you're getting a guy who has done a ton of wear and tear on his body in Nolan Arenado. Those are players in decline. You have to find the next set of guys that can take that over. Now, I don't know how you accomplish that, because that was supposed to be Jordan Walker, and of course that didn't work out. But it's what we talked about a few months ago, where it was like the Cardinals are always like in this murky middle, to where it's like they have the player that's ready to take over for them, but then the development is stunted and he doesn't get to that next level. And meanwhile, these guys are aged veterans and you're waiting for the young guy and putting pressure on him to get there, which does stunt that development. I think they've offset that a little bit with what Wilson Contreras. If not for the injury, I think we're talking about Wilson Contreras probably in MVP conversations for how he hit the first half and how he's been hitting now. But, I mean, if you want to avoid this in the future, you can't back the horse of a 34-year-old player who hit his MVP and said, we believe he can get back to that level as he continues to age. You've got to find that next wave that can take that over faster.
See, I actually don't have a problem with the way that the offense was built with Goldschmidt and Arenado. Because I think when you have MVP guys, you have to just ride with them until they hit their wall. And I think that's what has happened, where Arenado shouldn't be at a wall, and he's the one that's concerning, and I don't fully understand it. I'm almost hoping, it sounds bad to say this, I'm almost hoping he is hurt, because then it would explain why he's struggling and not hitting for power. Paul Goldschmidt, like, it's easy to see because he's 36 years old. At some point, we've seen it. The cliff just falls off, and you're not the same guy. I don't mind how they built there. I honestly like the way that they've built the offense as a whole. We've talked about this. They've got a whole bunch of different profiles. You've got Gorman, who has a ton of swing and miss, but can have 40 home run power. You had a Jordan Walker, who I thought was ready to go, and maybe he's the one where you say, okay, maybe you need to polish these guys a little bit better in the minor leagues. But I didn't think he was personally rushed because I saw the success last year at the big league level. You got guys that have on-base and power in Donovan and Nootbaar. I don't think the way that they constructed is the wrong way to build. I don't think they should be looking at this inconsistency in their offense and say, we built this wrong, we need to completely do it from scrap. I think what they need to do is say, for whatever reason, this unit's not working. We need to figure out which one we can pluck out and just send him away to get pitching for help, and then just continue to go with this offense and see if it ends up working. I think the guy that I'm referring to is probably Nolan Gorman, because I think he's the one that you can look at, and he shouldn't impact the team, even though he's got a ton of swing and miss, and say, all our other batted profiles get on base. They hit for average, they hit for power. For whatever reason, this unit's not working, and I think it comes down to you just hit the wall with your veterans, and I think you just find a way to replace them with a lot of the same guys that you have in your system, which is the Nootbaar that hits for average, gets on base, and slugs.
Outside of Baltimore and Philly, who's happy with their offensive output this year? Like overall, not individual pieces, but who is legitimately happy with the way that their offense has come together this year? Because Atlanta sure as hell isn't.
No.
They're frustrated to all get out about what their offense looks like compared to what the expectations
they've got
were.
a reason for it, too, with the Acuna injury.
Yeah, but their stars aren't performing this year compared
Did you say
to
Milwaukee?
expected.
Milwaukee's probably happy with their offense.
Probably. Yeah, that's probably another good one, and a lot of their young guys have come along, but it wouldn't surprise me if next year that comes back down to earth a bit, right? I think that's probably my biggest lesson from this year's Cardinals season is it's hard to expect young players to just continue to ascend. Progress isn't linear. It's something we talk about all the time. And I probably fell victim to this where we saw what happened last year with Jordan Walker, and I was like, oh, well, he's just going to be better than that now. Like, he had a weird start to the season, gets sent down, comes back up, and is awesome for the rest of the season. He's just going to pick up where he left off and be better defensively. Boom, wheels up. It is Jordan Walker season, right? And that obviously did not happen for the Cardinals. I kind of assumed, okay, Nolan Gorman is going to be inconsistent and it's going to be frustrating to watch, but he'll be like a 230 or 240 hitter that hits for a ton of power, and it's like a 205 hitter so far this year. And for a decent portion of the season, it's been below 200 in terms of his batting average, and that's too much. So I think a lot of what's happened to them is the inconsistency with these young players that ultimately leads to their identity of their lineup being tied to them. Because when you have Arenado and Goldie who aren't hitting, and you tie your identity to young players, and young players are more prone to slumps, well, that's how you get the ups and the downs, the ebbs and the flows of what this offense has been so far in 2024. So I think a lot of it is, man, can you get some more guys that are kind of in that Brendan Donovan range of age and production and history? Because Donovan, he's always here. He's the metronome of the offense, right? For the most part, he doesn't really slump for an extended period of time. I kind of know what you're getting out of him. I think they just need another dude like that in their lineup. You have that with Contreras. You have that with Brendan Donovan. Who is the third most consistent hitter in this lineup? Is it Mason Wynn?
Or Burleson.
Burleson,
It's
probably?
probably Burleson.
Yeah.
Wynn's starting to, you're starting to see signs of Wynn can go through a little bit of slumps now.
I think you need one more guy. And next year, that would be what I would prioritize. Is I do think whether it's via trade or free agency, and I don't know where they play and how they stack into this lineup. I'm really not sure about that. But that would be something that I would be prioritizing going into this offseason, is finding one more consistent bat. And it doesn't have to be an all-star, but a guy that I can consistently expect to be like 10 to 15% above league average.
I mean, right now it's got to be an outfielder. And that's where it comes to the trade.
Preferably in center field, but that's a really hard guy to find.
Or if you want to stay with that defensive-minded, and this is why I said you almost have to make a trade for a trade, which is kind of what Seattle is trying to do. They continuously kind of just shuffle the chairs around, is you just pick a position and not just like throw a dart on a board, but you say, okay, who are we okay with parting with that we can get something significant in return, and then maybe we can upgrade on that offensive spot as well. Maybe you pick a Nolan Gorman. Maybe you say, okay, we can get a good, controllable young arm for trading Gorman, and then maybe we can go out and find a second baseman that can
Or find an outfielder and you move Brendan Donovan to second base. Or Nootbaar. And that's why I think one of these left-handed bats has to be traded for that pitcher, and then you have to go sign or make another trade to get that bat for you.
Yeah, and it could be as simple as like, hey, Nootbaar's going to get us that number 2 starter that we're looking for. And these are all probably off-season discussions. I don't think you're going to make these moves in the season. I don't think they're deadline discussions.
Those players aren't available at this trade deadline.
But I think that in the offseason, you could look at Gorman or Nootbaar, and it's going to be hard. These are going to be one of those, like, take your medicine kind of moves. And you're going to be squeezing your cheeks every moment from the moment that you make the decision to trade him till the moment that they're done with their contract with whoever you send them to, because those guys can come back to burn you. And I think the one that can really come back to burn you is Gorman. I think that's the one that could hurt next year, where he hits 40 home runs and is leading a team into the postseason. The Nootbaar one, I think Burleson makes him expendable. And I like Lars Nootbaar. I've been higher on him than most Cardinals fans, I think, basically for the last 2 years. The injuries are real, and there's just, you always are kind of left wanting more. Now, the second half is typically when he heats up. It's been the case for each of his 3 seasons of his career so far. And if that happens again, we could get to the end of the season and we're singing a different tune. But as of today, I think the spot in your lineup that is most likely to be upgraded, that is easiest to upgrade from potentially, is left field and going out and getting somebody that is just more consistent than what you've had so far from Lars Nootbaar over the last couple of seasons.
And probably in their mind, a right-handed bat.
Most likely.
And I think that's your best case scenario, to where you have a plethora of these left-handers, especially some coming up in the rankings. You might have multiple guys that could garner you that number 2, number 3 pitcher and that right-handed bat, or you go into the offseason and you're willing to spend money on that right-handed bat.
Somebody said, who's your first baseman next year? I'm putting Alec Burleson there, and I'm not looking back.
Yeah.
I'm totally comfortable with him playing at first. Now, I do think that's a little bit of a waste of his arm, but I think you can get a couple of days here and there in the outfield as well. You can spell guys there. He'll play some DH as well, but that would be...
Unless you're willing to sign Pete Alonso and keep Burleson in the outfield, which I'm with you.
Yeah. I don't think they should do that. I also like the flexibility that Alec Burleson provides for you. Where, like, hey, if we need to move him to the outfield, you can find first base DH types. They're a dime a dozen. They're available every year in the offseason for nothing. If you felt like the one bat that's available next offseason, not named Pete Alonso, is a first baseman, I don't know who that guy would be. But if you have to trade for somebody, you could also do that. That's another opportunity that could be out there for them. All right, coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You give us a scenario, we'll tell you if we are betting it or if we're getting it here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. For bet it or forget it, you give us
Take
a
that,
scenario.
Ingrid.
We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101
Nailed
ESPN.
it.
That was so much better than what the anthem was
Hey,
last
man,
night.
I can sing the national anthem.
Let's start with this. Bet it or forget it. Brandon Ayuk's traded before opening day of the NFL season.
I would say bet it. If you're San Francisco, man, you are in such a fragile situation that you don't need distractions this season. And I know he makes your team better, but if you believe in the roster that you have with the coach that you have, I think you got to move on from that guy before he becomes a distraction. So I'm going to say bet it.
Where would you like to see him go? Like ideal worlds?
Obviously, Kansas City.
Oh, damn.
Where did he get traded to?
No, he hasn't been traded. I'll read you this here in just a little bit.
Detroit would be my team. We talked about that.
I would say Indy. I'd love to see him with Anthony Richardson. And I think they've got cap space to make it work. You got Richardson on the rookie deal, so you got to capitalize while you got it.
I think I would go Cardinals. I know that sounds kind of weird. They're not going to trade him in the division, but in an ideal world, I would love to see Kyler with Marvin Harrison Jr.
I'm just so out on
and
Kyler.
Brandon Ayuk.
I think Kyler's just a bad quarterback to have with those
I
guys.
kind of liked watching the Cardinals last year. It became fun. It was like, Kyler.
Honestly,
good to have you back.
Send him to Chicago.
I got
Add
too many
another
weapons.
weapon to that team.
Green Bay would be fun.
Green Bay would be absolutely fun.
You would
They
learn.
won't do it.
They
Yeah.
won't. You would learn about Jordan Love, though. If you believe in
I
Jordan
already
Love
know
like
as much as
BK
I need to
does,
see about
Don't-
Jordan Love.
don't-
I'm trying to add everything I can around him.
Don't trade him to Carolina. That's all I'm asking.
Oh, no.
Don't waste that in Carolina with Bryce Young.
Dude, what is happening outside?
Dude, it is, apparently Katie said it is like pouring in our house, like our drains are like overflowing for how much water's coming down.
I just cleaned my gutter, so good time.
Well, I did too, but this damn tree in my backyard, it just keeps
Dude,
popping
it's
leaves
so
in my gutter.
frustrating.
A lot of yard work.
If I wanted to see one other team, I mean, the Commanders are probably the most likely. He's tight with Jaden Daniels, and it would tell you a lot about Jaden Daniels.
If you're San
Him,
Francisco,
Jahan
though.
Dotson, Terry McLaurin.
If you're
Could
San
potentially
Francisco,
push
though,
yourself into
that's
a
where
good
he
weather.
wants to go. I'm not trading you there.
Yeah, I would imagine they want to be in the AFC.
If
they
you're
want
the
to put him in the
Giants,
AFC.
if you're the Giants, you need to do that as well.
Yeah. We good?
Our boss
Our
John
big
Kiowski
boss.
just walked in and looked at us.
Okay. We'll let you know if there's any leaks that start
I
spraying.
thought he was telling us to go downstairs. I'm
I did
like,
too.
wait a minute, John. We are gonna fight through this together.
Our big boss who never walks in the studio. I mean, I've never seen it happen.
Pointing down.
Came in and he's like, he points at us and points down. It's like, are we good?
Man, if I'm
Tornado?
if
What's
I'm
going
John,
on
if I
here?
want to screw with one of us, just walk by the door and just do this.
I thought I may have to give him my key card or something there.
He's
for a
firing us
minute.
on air right now.
All right. Anyways, I don't think I'm forgetting it. I do not think they're going to trade him before opening night of the season. I just don't see the value in it. If you're the 49ers, you're all in this year. Maybe it is an awkward situation that you got to get through, but you know what's more awkward? Not winning this year. That's the worst case scenario for the 49ers. They're all in. They've got an older veteran left tackle. They've got a quarterback that's going to get expensive sooner rather than later. This is the last year probably with Debo. Christian McCaffrey, I don't know how many more prime years you have with him. Fred Warner, same thing. You've got to capitalize, and the best way to do that is with a stud 1A, 1B, whatever you want to call him, wide receiver. I'm bringing him back and saying, hey, take your medicine. It's going to be fine. We're going to try to win with you here one more year. Alex, what do you got for us?
Guys, bet it or forget it, Dalibor Dvorsky earns a top 6 role out of training camp. I was reading to Frank's piece a couple of days ago. It was a chat that he had, and someone asked about him starting the season, and he said it was 50-50. And he said if he wins a spot, he will be playing in the top 6, and if not, he'll be playing in the AHL.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And I think it's obvious who he pushes out of that spot. It's Brandon Saad. Brandon Saad's the third-line winger for you.
Yeah.
That's who he earns the spot over.
You can put Shen on a wing and
You put
Butch on a
Shen-
wing, which is
yeah.
probably their most ideal.
Yeah, and Dvorsky
scenario.
right in the middle. I mean, you
Shen
talk
third
about
line.
versatility.
I'm going to say forget it because I think they're going to say there's no reason to push this. And I've heard Army say a million times at this point, it's more often that a team fails a player than it is that the player fails a team. And I don't think that the Blues really like Dvorsky.
Yeah.
They think he's legitimately great. And if you think that that's in the range of outcomes, there's no reason to potentially stunt his development. So I'm going to say forget it. I think he still starts in the AHL this year.
Yeah, I'm going to forget it as well. I think he starts in the AHL. All the tea leaves that it feels like the Blues have been laying out seem to signal that they want all the young guys to really earn their way onto the roster, not to just gift wrap them a spot.
I really think he's going to make it an interesting conversation, and I think that centerman position is going to come down to Dvorsky and Buchnevich. And if Dvorsky can hold his own, my expectation, where they play 7 preseason games, my expectation is Dvorsky is going to play in 6 of those 7 preseason games, and he's going to be playing your second-line center a majority of them. And I really think the decision is going to come down to Dvorsky or Buchnevich. And if they have to pick one of those two, if Dvorsky can hold his own, I think he earns a spot.
T-Bone?
Guys, bet it or forget it. The Cardinals' top 3 pitchers going into October will be Sonny Gray, Kyle Gibson, Miles Michaelis.
Bet it.
I'm going to forget it because I'm ever the eternal optimist in this scenario.
Unless Rich Hill just says, I'm back, baby.
Yeah.
He's like a 7, ideally.
Or Steven Matz, he'll return that last month. And, well, Steven showed us a lot. He's going to earn himself a playoff opportunity.
I can hear the trumpets now. Da-da-da-da. Steven Matz.
I'm still going to say it's somebody like a Yusei Kikuchi, who I know Cardinals
the other day.
I know. He has a 4.4 ERA. Like, Cardinals fans aren't going to be excited about it if and when they make that kind of a move. But I will be. I'll say that's a pretty good move by them, and I think he's better than most of what they have right now. So I'm going to say forget it, but I get it.
I'm going to say bet it because I'm going to remain optimistic that Mo sees what everybody else across baseball sees, that they need a number 2. I will say this, and I kind of tinfoiled this in the office today. Hearing him lay out the breadcrumbs and us just talking about the inconsistent offense for the Cardinals, if you have an inconsistent offense going into October, you probably don't believe in your team. So if they don't add a starter, it tells me that Jamo Zalak in the front office didn't buy into what the Cardinals have been doing, and they just didn't believe that they were worth investing in.
All right, let's get to the text line. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. Guys, bet it or forget it. Alec Burleson will lead the Cardinals in home runs this season. As of today, he's tied with Gorman for the team lead with 17.
I'm going to bet it because this dude's consistent. Nolan Gorman is not. And even if Gorman goes on his torrid pace in the month of July, Burleson can slightly take over that spot. I love everything about Burleson, so I'm going to say forget it. Or bet it.
I'm going to forget it. I think Gorman ultimately leads them in home runs. I still think that power plays. And he's going to go through a stretch where, once again, 10 out of 10 home runs in like a 25-game stretch. That's going to happen for Gorman. So I'm going to say forget it.
I'm going to bet it. I think Burley will beat him out because I think Gorman, though, yes, he has his ebbs and flows, his struggles now are becoming more and more apparent and lasting longer and longer. Baseball seems to have figured something out on Gorman.
Better to forget it. The Cardinals will sign Mason Wynn to a long-term contract extension similar to what the Braves do with their young players. I'm going to say forget it. I think they want to see one more season out of him. I think they learned from the Jordan Walker thing that, hey, you can have a really good season, and we've seen this across baseball. Corbin Carroll has had a weird season this year. Julio Rodriguez has not been the same player as he was early on. I think they want to see a couple of years before they go down that path. But I do expect that Mason Wynn will be one of the players that gets a long-term extension.
We joke about how eventually the team is afraid to trade players because of what they'll do. I think this team's also afraid to give extensions because extensions to players has not worked out in the past. I mean, you're thinking Colton Wong, Miles Michaelis, Matt Carpenter.
I disagree with that. I think their extensions have been fine. The first ones. I think their problem is when they get the second one out. And when they get into like the age 30-plus season and then give an extension, like the Colton Wong thing, I think was fine. They decided to decline the option and said, okay, we're going to move our separate ways. But they got really good value out of the deal. The first Matt Carpenter contract extension was great for the Cardinals. The second one, not so great for the Cardinals. But I think generally speaking, they've gotten value when they've signed young players to the contract extensions.
Yeah, I'll forget it, though. I think you're right. I think they wait another year. I think you'd be foolish not to wait another year, just because of what you said. If Walker and Carroll, who have arguably higher ceilings than what most people thought of Mason Wynn, then why would I not wait another year to see what it looks like for Mason Wynn?
Last one here. Bet it or forget it, guys. The Tennessee Titans win their division in the AFC South this season. I'm forgetting it. I'm a Colts believer in 2024. That's my squad.
The quarterback's shoulder still hurts.
It's fine. I'm a Colts believer and a Texans believer.
I was going to say.
Yeah. The
if
team
there's going to be
winning
a
that
team
division
that surprises in the division this year, I think it's going to be the Colts. I should have rephrased that.
I mean, the Texans are going to run away with that division this year.
Yeah, forget it. They're not going to win the division.
I think Texans are going to be the third best team in the AFC next season.
Behind Kansas City and
Baltimore.
I think second.
Okay.
I'm actually going to one-up you. I think they're second.
Oh, you don't believe in Lamar Jackson, eh?
I'm worried about Baltimore.
I am too.
Especially when I read like their whole offensive lines in like a contest for a starting job. I can tell you that doesn't typically end well.
Derrick Henry is going to help that team significantly because when that team got to the red zone last year, they never scored.
All right, we have an update on the anthem from last night.
Is she going to sing it again
not
tonight?
a happy one.
No.
Ingrid Andress, apparently, she just wrote this on Twitter. I'm not going to BS you guys. I was drunk last night. I'm checking myself into a facility today to get the help that I need. That was not me last night. I apologize to Major League Baseball, all the fans in the country that I love so much for that rendition. I'll let you all know how rehab is. I hear it's super fun. XO Ingrid. So she is going to be seeking out the help that she needs. Now I feel a little bad about making as much fun as I did, but what happened last night was terrible.
How does nobody stop her, though?
Yeah.
How does her talent
That explains
agency?
why I would assume why the sound check probably didn't sound as bad as what
I
ultimately
played for you
we all
guys
heard yesterday.
one of her songs during a commercial break, and it's like she doesn't sound like you could tell there's a little bit of auto tune in her songs, but I mean this is awful for her, and so I hope she gets the help that she needs. But
Can't let that happen. I mean,
if you're her producer or talent agency, you know she's drunk at that point. You can't let her go on.
And to be fair, I'm guessing this is if she seriously like legitimately has a problem and she's checking herself into it. This is not something where she like, hey, I got hammered. He got away from me, you know, like we've all had those moments, right? Where like the night gets away from you and you didn't expect it to go in the direction that it did. Been there, done that. And then suddenly you do or say something stupid and you're like, ah, man, I messed up. If she's checking herself into a spot where she's getting into a rehab facility, like clearly this has probably happened before. She recognized last night in a very public and national moment that it's gone too far and she needs to get help. So they've probably seen her go out and like perform under the similar circumstances as this is obviously speculation by me, but I would assume she's probably performed under similar circumstances as to what she did last night. Somebody on the text line said, you guys buy that? Yeah, I do. I absolutely buy it.
You don't check yourself into rehab because of a bad PR moment. You say that was a bad night by me and I apologize from it. If you've got a problem, you're checking yourself into rehab.
Yeah, I buy it because it's very easy to just say, hey, I don't know what happened last night. That wasn't me. I should have been better. Like, there's other ways that you can make a public statement, and you can just make fun of yourself, honestly. For her to go about it this way, man, I hope she gets the help she needs, and I hope she ends up coming out on the other side of this thing. Wish her nothing but the best. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer, but next, are we overestimating how much the division has actually improved around the St. Louis Blues? Talk about that here on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Tonight here on 101 ESPN, you can hear the MLB All-Star Game as well. Pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock as the pitching matchup for tonight's All-Star Game is Paul Skeens versus Corbin Burns. And last night was the Home Run Derby, and Teoscar Hernandez won the title, beating Pete Alonso from winning his third straight Home Run Derby. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Be safe out there. Just got an alert that apparently there's quite a bit of flooding going on in the St. Louis area. So be safe out there. Be smart as you're driving. Be careful. Please don't be looking at your phone while you're driving, just in case. Just listen to the radio, enjoy yourself, and we'll take you home. We'll be here until 2 o'clock. Fastlane starting at 2 up until 6.
Just got nervous, you know?
Meanwhile, Alex is throwing cups because he's so mad about how long it's going to take him to get home.
270 apparently is a nightmare, which 270 is always a nightmare. So imagine what happens when you add flooding to it.
Quick update on the breaking news story today in sports is that Brandon Ayuk, according to Adam Schefter, not being shopped, shockingly enough, by the San Francisco 49ers. Adam Schefter tweeting that other teams have reached out and spoken to San Francisco. They have been told that the 49ers have, quote, no intention of trading disgruntled wide receiver Brandon Ayuk, who has officially requested a trade. The 49ers open their training camp next week. So that's the latest update on Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk wants a trade or to be paid. The 49ers don't want to trade him or to pay him. So ultimately what happens, he shows up to training camp, gets his $14 million, and then at the end of the season, the two sides reconvene and decide what the future looks like for both of them. That's my current anticipation for the way this will go. All right, Alex, let's talk about the Blues. So we've talked a lot about how the Western Conference has improved around the Blues, which makes it difficult for the Blues, even if they are better, if you believe them to be better than what they were last season, to really improve when it comes to their points percentage. However, at ESPN.com earlier today, they put a ranking out, but with their analytics on which teams have actually improved their rosters from the end of last season to where we are today, and which teams have downgraded from where they were at the end of last season. Alex, these are the teams in the Western Conference that, according to ESPN.com, have gotten worse since the end of last season, okay?
Okay.
Minnesota, Calgary, Colorado, Dallas, the LA Kings, Winnipeg Jets, and Vegas Golden Knights. So 7 of the teams in your conference, according to ESPN.com, have downgraded.
And 5 of those teams were playoff teams last year.
And when you look at the biggest downgrades in the NHL, according to this list, came from, and these are significant, Dallas, LA, Winnipeg, and Vegas.
Yep.
Have we overstated how much the Western Conference has improved around the Blues in your opinion?
I absolutely think we have, because to me, and I mean, Vegas has always has something up their sleeve, but they don't have a whole lot to offer in terms of trades right now, and they lost a lot of offense with their team over the offseason start of it. So, like, they, to me, are not a 98 team next season. They're more like probably around what you were, 90 points. The LA Kings are in a bad spot. Like, they just traded what was supposed to be their number 2 centerman or number 1 centerman. No, number 2 centerman because of Kopitar. They just traded that away to get rid of his salary. And on top of that, they had traded away a lot of young players. To me, they are not a 99-point team next season. They still don't have goaltending, nor does Vegas, in my opinion, but they still have some defense. Colorado, I'm really not sure, because as much as they look like they're a downgrade, they still have Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar and Mikko Rantanen. And if Landeskog comes back, that offsets Nichushkin. They're still a playoff team, in my opinion. Same can be said about Winnipeg and Dallas because they've got goaltending. But I don't think L.A. and Vegas are playoff teams. Nashville's a playoff team. All of the other teams, in my opinion, are still a playoff team. But if I take 2 teams out of that conversation and put them in the same group as the Blues, the Wild, the Flames, the Seattle Kraken, and the Utah hockey team, so now we're talking about, what did I say, 7 teams fighting for 2 playoff spots? And if you go through each one of those teams I just listed to you, who's got the best goaltending out of them? I think the Blues do. And to me, we saw it last year. Goaltending is the most important factor into being a playoff team. So do I think the Blues are going to be a significant upgrade from where they were last year? No, I think they're probably going to be about a 90-point team. But I think the same can be said about L.A., Vegas. I don't think Minnesota's going to be as good. Calgary's still in a rebuild. Seattle and Arizona are who you need to worry about. But do you think Seattle is 10 points better than what they were last season, or Arizona is 14 points better than what they were last season?
According to, again, this is just one metric, but based on what they're using for ESPN.com's article, the Blues actually improved more from the end of last season than Seattle did, for example. That's one of the teams that was behind them. The Blues were top 10 in the NHL, according to this metric, in their improvement compared to what they were last season. Now, the other teams that were in the top 10 from your conference include the Nashville Predators. They were the second most improved team from the end of last season by only Chicago. San Jose Sharks. You've got the Anaheim Ducks, and then boom,
That screwed the Cardinals if the Blues if the San Jose Sharks got better. Crap.
The Blues have improved a decent amount from the end of last season. I was a little surprised to see that the Utah Hockey Club, which is what they're apparently going by, didn't improve by as much as I would have otherwise anticipated.
I mean, they got, don't get me wrong, they have a number one elite defender in Mikhail Sergachev, but he did just miss an entire season with a serious injury, and they had a great draft, but a lot of these guys aren't coming to the NHL this season. It's still probably a couple of years away, and they still have a goaltender in Connor Ingram, who, get excited for it as much as you want, but I think they're the same team, with the exception of bringing in another good defender, but your team around it still isn't great.
Seen the value of having that number one defenseman and how much that can improve everybody else around you, right?
It can.
So much just looks different when you've got that specific piece that's in place.
But it's not going to make you 14 points better than what you were last season. It might make you, it might give you a couple of extra wins than where you were, but they ended the season last year a minus 18 goal differential, and they scored 256 goals, which was more than what you scored. Their offense was fine.
Yep.
Defense probably saves you 15 of those goals, but your goaltender is still a problem.
The other NHL-related thing that I wanted to get to, The Athletic, your guy over there, Scott Wheeler, put together his list of the top 100 drafted prospects in the NHL right now. His number one, Macklin Celebrini, this year's number one overall pick, and in tier 2, he's got Matvei Michkov. He's the number 2 overall prospect, so that's kind of the top of the top. The Blues do have 5 prospects that make his top 100. And if you're looking at the top of that list, it is Jimmy Snuggerud for the St. Louis Blues. He's at 34 out of the top 100. Dalibor Dvorsky came in at number 51, and then they've got 3 defensemen that round out the top 100. Otto Stenberg at number 86, Adam Juracek.
Yeah, Juracek.
At
Stenberg's
number 91,
a forward.
and then,
Lindstein.
And then Lindstein at number 94 overall on this as well. So you've got 5 prospects in his top 100. Alex, when I was looking at this, what stood out to me, other teams that have that many prospects in the top 100 include Washington, Winnipeg, Utah, Seattle, Detroit, Chicago, Anaheim, Montreal, and Columbus. The only teams on that list that I just mentioned that have not tanked to get that high in terms of the prospects in their pool that are ranked in the top 100 are Seattle, Winnipeg, Washington, St. Louis. And I think Seattle is almost in a separate category because they're an expansion team, so they're given some other things there. Winnipeg, Washington, and Seattle, really the only 3 teams that have at least 5 prospects in the top 100 that have not been tanking. Pretty damn good job by Doug Armstrong and company.
Absolutely. And I think to put yourself in the conversation, Winnipeg's probably the most impressive from what they've been able to find late in the draft. It's what you did for that stretch about 10 years from 2013 until a couple of years ago where you were selecting lower in the draft. But that's a really good position to be in, especially when you look at kind of how Washington's flipped it around. And, I mean, you did all of that. I mean, Snuggerud was 21, I think. You had 2 of the 3 guys in last year's draft were selected 22 or later. And then, of course, with Dalibor Dvorsky being up there and then Juracek this one. So you're in a really good position with it. It's why the optimism is there. And you're probably looking at that summer of 2026. So after the 2024-2025 season, that summer of 2026 where the Blues can try and be like the Nashville Predators of spend money in the offseason because all of these guys have developed and pushing for NHL spots.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK. We're going to dive into the junk drawer coming up next here on 101 ESPN. All right, boys, quick junk drawer today with Alex and T-Bone on BK. So my question for you is, have you had the kind of anticipation for a video game that you do for NCAA? Because I haven't touched my Xbox in like 6 years probably. I haven't played video games in a really long time.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about breaking it out. I think it might be just about time for me to.
What do you have, a PlayStation 2? And does it even work with the game
I got
that's
a 360. I don't know if it'll.
Yeah, I was just saying, I don't know if that game goes there. You got to get like
I'll figure it out.
You got to drop like $500
You're
in
gonna
a new
do what I'm
system.
doing. I'm going to buy a PS5 just for the college
you?
football game. That's how excited I am.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have the expendable income right now to be able to do that.
I didn't when I bought
would
mine.
like
I
to.
really don't either, but I'm shooting for the stars.
Dude, I have so much FOMO right now. Like, I see all these people that are on Twitter that are talking about the gameplay and everything, and they're, like, getting into it. They've got their dynasties going. I need it. I need it in my life right now. I miss it so desperately.
Let me tell you something. Don't do it because you're not going to have the time to put towards it with a kid.
I'll do it at night. I'll figure it out.
Then you're going to be like me, and you're going to be staying up till 2 in the morning and be
I'm up
exhausted
till
the
1
next day.
anyways,
Oh, if
man.
you're actually up till 2, shoot me a message. We'll play online together.
Yeah. God, I did it. I bought my PlayStation 5, so there's like, I really only just play the sports games, but there are 2 like shooter games that I play, and it was The Last of Us and it's this Resident Evil. And when those 2 games came out, that's why I bought a PlayStation 5. And then after you buy it, you regret it so much because you're
What's
like,
the newest Xbox? Is it the one?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, sounds right.
You can get that for like $120 right now.
Oh,
over at
okay, that's
GameStop.
not it then.
Let's do it.
Oh no, it's the Xbox Series
X. Yeah.
Series X.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's
$499.
$499. We should have told him. We would have bought it and been like, guys, I can't play the game on it.
Can I play it on the Xbox One?
I don't. I was gonna look it up for you
I don't
right
think
now.
so. I think it's got to be all next-gen consoles.
Yeah, let me see.
Mine was a once upon a time in next
Yeah,
year.
it's
once upon a
PlayStation.
time.
It's
Hey, I'll
PlayStation
never
5,
forget.
Xbox Series X or S. So Series S is going to
man.
be a little cheaper. I think it's like $250, but it's all online based.
When I don't remember, I think it was 2 years ago, whatever man that would have been. I remember when they announced that new like crowd mechanic to where you can like control the momentum of the game and your team gets these new abilities. I was so excited for it, but I didn't read into it. So I bought the game for my PS4. Only to realize when I plugged it in and started playing for the first time that those new crowd mechanics that I was so excited for only were for the next-gen consoles.
Well, I stopped buying Maddens because like it was just the same game every single time. And so like I started spreading it out because every year I was dropping $60 on the baseball one, $60 on the football one, $60 on the hockey one, and I had to spread it out. This one I haven't purchased yet because frankly, I don't have time to, but I know there's a newborn coming, so that's going to give me 2 weeks of just sitting there with the baby.
I think I'm going to do the Series S. I'm doing it.
Do it right now. Don't tell. Do it on the air when your wife can find out that way.
Dude, Amazon has a Prime Day today.
Yeah, those aren't discounted.
Yeah.
You don't think so?
I've already looked at them. They ain't discounted.
Does fat kid deals have anything going on?
PlayStation 5s, actually, there was one, but I think it's like $50 off.
Yeah, I'm going to need a little more than that.
No, man, just buy it. Let it fly, man.
Somebody said, grown men playing and talking video games. Just sad. Hey, man, again,
Oh, dude,
I told you.
come on.
My video game console is an Xbox 360. I have not played that Xbox 360 in at
Where'd
least 6
that
years.
text come from?
You
What was
can-
that number?
There's nothing wrong
You
with
can say grown men playing video games is just sad, but like that was my childhood.
Yeah, that guy, his childhood was reading
Go
a
touch
book
some
by
grass,
the fire.
man.
His childhood was going out there and rolling a rock with a stick. Or a hula hoop with a stick. That's what it was.
probably playing Pong.
No, he ain't playing Pong. He or she was before the video game era.
Yeah.
They were drawing cartoons on paper with a piece of lead. That's how they enjoyed themselves. Grown men playing video games. That's just depressing. The hell out of here. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. Just like there's nothing wrong when BK goes to Disney World. Let guys
All right,
enjoy what they
relax.
want to do.
We're doing a cruise next year instead.
Nice.
I want to do a cruise with Katie, like the Disney cruise with the girls. She won't do it. She's like, no, because they'll fall off.
Oh, I'm not going with Luca. Luca's not invited.
Wow.
So you're going on a Disney cruise.
With me, Kara, her sister, and my brother-in-law. We're going to their new island.
You're really testing my ability after I just stood up for you a second ago. I'm
What's the
saying, like,
problem?
I think Luke
It's
would
good
like
food.
it.
It's good drink. It's going to be going to the Bahamas. We're
it's
good.
going to be kids everywhere.
Oh, there's an adult-only section.
Luca would fit into the kids section.
Well, he would be like 1.5.
Oh, yeah,
It would be a
I really
disaster.
wouldn't do that.
It'd be absolute disaster.
Dude, my oldest would climb on the railings, and she would probably go overboard. So Katie's like, we were not doing a cruise until like they're 10.
Yeah, we'll do a cruise with Luca when he's like 6. But at that point, we'll probably have another kid, and so we won't.
And then you'll delay it again. Wow, that is the way for Luca not to like his brother or sister.
That texter pissed me off. Why are we shooting down people that play video games?
Do whatever makes you happy, man. My wife likes Disney, so I participate in all the Disney stuff. It makes me happy to see her happy. It's for her birthday. If you want to do something that makes you happy, if that means playing video games and you're still a good father whenever your kids are awake, great. Go play video games, man.
Doesn't matter.
Don't play a video game and ignore your child. That's probably not ideal.
What is this
but
world?
Do whatever makes you happy,
What is this world we live in right now where it's like, oh, grown men playing video games, that's just embarrassing.
Back in his day with his books. Just the way the world
I'm outside working with my hands. I don't need a video game.
Hey, man, if you do that, you are indeed more manly than I am. And I'm more than happy to admit that. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, coming up next, are you allowing yourself to get excited by the Cardinals' young pitching prospects in Double A? We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with Tracy Bibb, Allstate Agency, who takes care of my car and home insurance. And Tracy, I got to imagine the phones are ringing like crazy right now. All of the rain flooding a problem right now. Talk to us a little bit about what your clients get when they call about flood problems.
Yeah, absolutely. So biggest thing with flood is a lot of people have not purchased flood insurance. So your regular home policy excludes flood. So if you did not purchase a separate policy, then you're not going to have coverage for that. And I would say it's not a lot of people that decide to go ahead and make sure that they purchase a flood policy. It's definitely something that we sell here at the agency and something that we talk about. Also, we did get news earlier this week, and it just started on Monday. We have new home rates. So our insurance rates have gone down on our home policies, which were already very competitive to begin with. And if you're somebody with a brand new roof, doesn't matter if you got that roof because of a claim like a hailstorm or weather-related claim, we have even better rates for you. So definitely a time to call us at the Bibb Agency.
Call her right now. Tell her you heard the conversation with me on 101 ESPN, and her team will take care of you, give you a free non-committal quote. Super simple. 314-328-4260. That's 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb. Tracy, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Go Blues.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK. So I saw a story yesterday from KSDK that got me wondering, are Cardinals fans excited about what's on the horizon pitching-wise? 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Get your thoughts in there. YouTube.com/101 ESPN is also where you can watch us each and every day. The Graveyard Chat off and running over there as well. So KSDK had a story about the pitching prospects that are currently on the horizon down in Double-A, Alex. That includes Tink Hence. It includes Quinn Matthews. It includes Cooper Jerpy. They're super talented. They have more swing and miss stuff than basically any recent Cardinals group of prospects since like the Jack Flaherty, Alex Reyes, that wave of pitching that was coming up for the Cardinals. As I saw this story, I didn't even want to read it. And it's no disrespect to the KSDK guy, Corey Miller, who put it together. I've no disrespect at all. I have just been so burned so many times by Cardinals young pitchers that it's hard for me to get excited without seeing it work at the big league level. Are you guys there? Are you allowing yourself like to get excited about what's on the horizon? Or are you kind of like me where you're haunted by the ghosts of pitching prospects past?
Yeah, I'm jaded with this now. I've been broken by the Cardinals with pitching, so I don't want to hear about how this young pitcher is tearing it up in the minor leagues right now and the future looks bright with this kid until I see it at the major league level, because I feel like it's always this way with Cardinals pitching. Now, I understand this is a little different because you do have more swing and miss stuff. You heard, if you missed it earlier with Eric Longenhagen from FanGraphs talking about Quinn Matthews and Cooper Jerpy. Like, yes, there's a lot more upside with these guys compared to what it was with McGreevy and Graceffo, because those were pitch to contact types of guys and you knew what the upside was going to look like. But it's hard for me to get excited about Cardinals pitching until I see it get to the major leagues, because it always feels like it hits this plateau once you get to Memphis, where it's like, oh man, A-ball, these guys are crushing it. Double-A, look out for these kids. The swing and miss is there. And then you get to A-ball and it's like, yeah, he still needs to work on this type of pitcher. He needs to add this to his pitching range if he wants to get to the major leagues. So I'm in the wait-and-see camp an awful lot with the Cardinals pitching development.
See, I'm actually willing to dream on it a little bit. I'm going to fall for it, and we'll see if I end up living to regret that. But I think these guys, the reason I want to dream on it more is because they're not like the pitching prospects that have failed. You know, I think when you think
they're going to fail in a different way this time. It'll be great.
Yeah, well, true. But I think when you think of the guys that have failed, like the Dakota Hudson, the Jake Woodford, anybody that was kind of in that kind of era of pitching prospects that kind of came up, none of them had that kind of swing and miss. Like looking at Dakota Hudson numbers when he was in AAA, his strikeout per 9 was 7. All three guys that you mentioned, Quinn Matthews, Tink Hence, Cooper Jerpy, and I'll throw Ian Bedell in there because he recently just got promoted to AAA Memphis, all have strikeout per 9s higher than 9. And I think 3 of those 4 were over 10 plus. So these guys have what I would call modern pitching. They're not the Michael McGreevy who, when they took him in the first round, I said to myself, I'm not sure how this guy works out because he pitches to contact. And you can't teach swing and miss. That is something that is not taught. I mean, they tried to do that last year. They gave that poor assignment to Dusty Blake with Miles Michaelis, and he was like, no, it can't be taught. That's why I'm willing to dream on these guys. They've got swing and miss, and swing and miss may not translate to where they're striking out 10 per 9 innings in the big leagues, but can it be 8? Can it be something that is reasonable? Because Kyle Gibson's a guy that's got reasonable swing and miss stuff. Can you get these guys, maybe not to be aces, but guys that can come up and have decent swing and miss? I think you potentially can, and that's why I'm willing to dream on these guys more than I would in the pitchers past of St. Louis Cardinals prospects.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's every reason to be more excited about these guys than there has been previous versions of the Cardinals pitchers. Like, you look at what Cooper Jerpy has done this year. I mean, it's been pretty damn impressive. At high A ball, he was striking out 14 batters per 9 innings. Went to Double-A, and now over the course of 4 starts, now he's not getting deep into these starts, but over the course of 4 starts, about 13 strikeouts per 9 innings. Like, the strikeout rate is there. The ERA is below 3.5 this year combined at both high A and at Double-A. it's even better for Quinn Matthews, where he has a 2.5 ERA so far on the season. And Tinkins has been dealing with some injuries this season, but he's having a much better season at AA than he did a year ago in terms of his effectiveness. The strikeout rate is way up. The ERA is way down. There have been individual games where he's been allowed to go a little deeper into the game, which has always been the question about him. Unfortunately, after that, he had to be shut down for a little bit. Hopefully, he's fully healthy now. But he's thrown 54 innings, which ties his career high. So we're halfway through the season, and Tinkins has already tied his career high in innings pitched at any level. So we're getting there. We're starting to see some signs of progress from Tinkins. Now I just want to see all of them take that next step. And that next step is like sustaining this over the course of the second half. And that next step is getting to AAA next year and actually continuing to progress. Because I've seen guys tear it up at AA, and then they get to AAA, and for whatever reason, it stalls out. And then they get to the majors, and the pitches don't translate the way that they wanted them to. So is there reason for optimism if you want to be? 100%. Am I buying into it just yet? No, man, I'm really not. And it like kind of makes me frustrated because I want to get excited about these pitchers because they are so different. T-Bone's right. They do not classify as the same types of pitchers as what you had with the last group of guys that have sold out right now at the AAA level. And yet, because they're in a Cardinals uniform, because they're minor league prospects in this system, and because they're starting pitchers, I just assume it's not going to work. Or they're going to, at best, stall out as a 4-starter at the major league level.
And I do believe that these guys are the ones that can change our opinion on the Cardinals' development of pitching. We talk so much about how they need to fix their pitching development system as a group. These guys could change that opinion for us. But if they hit the stall like we've seen for these other players, that just adds more... That adds more gasoline to the fire that is this Cardinals in terms of developing pitchers. Like, there was so much hype for McGreevy and Graceffo, and I get that they're different. But when we heard Jason Isringhausen talk about it at the beginning of the season about how these guys, right now they're working on certain pitches to add to their weaponry. If they're going to be successful at the major leagues, they got to figure this out. I'm very worried that those guys are going to hit it once you see the next level of talent, which seems to be par for the course with the Cardinals.
He's Alex Ferrario, that's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll get back to the biggest news in the NFL. The San Francisco 49ers, their wide receiver Brandon Ayuk has requested a trade from the team. The team is telling everybody, yeah, we're not trading him. We'll get into the latest with that. Get some more NFL quick hitters next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley for our friends over at Circa Sports in Illinois. You got to download the app. You should be betting over there. You got yesterday the best odds for your home run derby. If you bet on Teoscar Hernandez, you won big over on the Circa Sports app. But that's not the only thing they have to offer. Out in Las Vegas right now, they are running their annual tradition of the Circa Millions and Circa Survivor, $16 million in guaranteed prizes this year, Alex. It's the biggest pool they've ever had, and most importantly, zero rake, which means all of that money getting redistributed out to the winners. Circa Millions is very simple. $1,000 per entry. Pick 5 teams against the spread every week, and the winner's going home with $6 million in guaranteed prizes for that pool. Circa Survivor is my personal favorite. $10 million guaranteed to the winners. $1,000 per entry. You're going to pick one team straight up every week to win. And if you end up winning that, you're going home with big-time money with Circus Sports.
I'm so excited for the upcoming football season with all the betting that's going to be available to you. Tight money line splits, bringing in the most money possible. You heard BK mention about those big plays with Circus Sports Illinois. Download the app today and get ready for the upcoming football season. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK. All right, let's get into some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN. Alex, last year I feel like the Bills were really the team that we highlighted going into the season of like, this is the last run with this core group of players. And if it doesn't work this year, it's going to be time to blow it all up. And that has indeed been the case. This offseason, the Bills have disassembled the roster that they put together to try to take down the Chiefs in the playoffs in recent seasons. They never were able to do exactly that, but they got pretty damn close. I feel like there's two teams you can hone in on this year that fit into that category. One is the 49ers. We've been talking about them most of the day today. You got Brandon Ayuk, who has now requested a trade. The 49ers have said, we're not trading you, dude. We're not paying you. We're not trading you. We'll talk about this next year. Please just go play football. Be great for us this season. Let's try to win another Super Bowl together. The other, I think, is the Cincinnati Bengals. They had another wide receiver that also requested a trade earlier in the offseason in T. Higgins. They franchised him and said, we're not paying you long term. We're not trading you anywhere. We want you to be on this roster for 2024, and we're going to try to win one more time with Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. That's our core. Let's see what this looks like in 2024. Alex, which one of those teams do you think is more likely to get over the top this year, the Bengals or the 49ers?
Oh, I would say the Bengals. I because of the quarterback, one, and because of the other weapons around it. I'm concerned about this because Brandon Ayuk was so impactful for this team. And, I mean, Brock Purdy, although he has been good, Brock Purdy isn't a quarterback that I think can handle situations like this when you take out one of the better receivers. And I understand if he stays with the team, fine, but you're going to have a disgruntled player, which I always think is a factor in it. And on top of that, the next best thing you got in terms of receiver is Deebo Samuel, who's typically hurt for half of the season. You still got Christian McCaffrey, which is an incredible weapon to have. But I'll back the Cincinnati Bengals horse any day of the week because of Joe Burrow.
I think I would say San Fran's the one that can get over the hump because
That's what I'm going with too.
Though I do worry about the Ayuk situation, because I do think that played a factor in Cincinnati's struggles last year. I believe Kyle Shanahan can keep things lock and key. I think he's too respected across NFL circles and amongst NFL players. He's like one of the first coach you'd hear players say, who do you want to go play for? It'd probably be Andy Reid 1, Kyle Shanahan 2, and maybe Sean McVay like 3. Like I think that's how much respect he has because of the offensive mind that he is, and they've just got a better roster overall. I love Joe Burrow. The defense for the Bengals doesn't really put fear into me like the San Francisco 49ers does, so I would say the 49ers, to me, have the better chance to get over the hump.
I'm going 49ers as well. I trust their defense. That's the biggest thing. I just don't trust the defense for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. I love their defensive coordinator last year. I think you saw the difficulties of trying to build around the roster that they've assembled on that side of the ball, and it could potentially be worse this year. So I'm worried about their defense. I think they're going to be really good offensively once again. I don't know that you can win that way in the postseason. I think it's really, really hard. It's fragile. So I would go with the 49ers as the team that I trust more to be able to get over the top in their final season with this current crop of players available to them. Alex, I saw something yesterday on your Houston Texans. They believe that the Texans trio of Diggs, Collins, and Tank Dell could be the best trio of wide receivers that you have for any team this year in the NFL. I wanted to ask a slightly different question based upon this, though. If I told you going into a fantasy draft, you are required to take the quarterback, the running back, the wide receiver, and a flex off of one team. You've got to take 4 players from your fantasy team, from one team. Which team would you most want to build around? You get their quarterback, their running back, their wide receiver, and a flex. Who would you want to have as your team that you're building?
I would have it as a tie between Detroit and Houston. Like like as much as I like Houston because you're getting 2 of those wide receivers, I think Joe Mixon is their running back. Yep. So like good group. But, man, if you're telling me that Mike could go Amon-Ra St. Brown with Jared Goff, David Montgomery, and Jahmyr Gibbs, or if you want to go Sam Laporta there, I think I'd go either of those. It really comes down to what Joe Mixon is this year. If Joe Mixon's hurt like he's been in like last year was, then I think I'd probably lean more towards Detroit. But if you're telling me that he's healthy, good to go, I'd probably go Houston would have the slight edge.
T-Bone?
Detroit was my first one, and I thought Houston sort of go different from those two. I think I would say the Chiefs. I think I would like the Patrick Mahomes. I had Pacheco last year, and he's not like a guy that's going to put up significant numbers, but you can lock him in for a solid 12 to 15 points every single week. And then you've got Rice, you've got Hollywood St. Brown, and you've got Travis Kelce, who I'd probably put at the flex, and then I'd take one of the wide receivers. So I think that would be the team for me.
I think I would go with one of 2 teams. 3, really, but I'm going to go.
He's going to say Green Bay.
My first one would be San Francisco. We mentioned them. You get Christian McCaffrey. He's the best player in fantasy. I get Debo. I get one of
Brock's going to put up points
Ayuk or Kittle. And, Brock Purdy's going to put up points because of that. Set them aside. I think Philadelphia is being slept on. I don't love their offense, but, dude, think of the players that you get in this scenario. You're telling me I get Jalen Hurts, who's a top 3 quarterback in fantasy. I get Saquon Barkley running behind a really good offensive line for the first time in his NFL career. I think he's going to have a monster season potentially this year. I don't think he's going to get the receiving production, but the touchdown should be off the charts, especially coming off of a Jalen Hurts injured season. I don't know that they're going to do the tush push as often as they did a year ago. They also don't have Jason Kelce, which is a big part of that. And now I've got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith as my wide receiver / flex. Yeah, I'll go ahead and take the Philadelphia Eagles. That would be the one that I would absolutely want to build around. A sleeper contender for this, Alex? What about Indy? Anthony Richardson could be easily a top 3 quarterback this year in fantasy football.
That's a risk, though.
Jonathan Taylor, potentially a top 5 running back in fantasy football. Been there before.
I mean, that dude was going top 3 last year in the draft, and he was terrible.
Huge risk. This is a risky one.
Yeah. And who's your receivers that
Michael
you're taking?
Pittman Jr., I think, could have a really good season this year. And then if you add in, what's his face? Josh Downs. I think he could have a good season for them this year.
He was okay last year.
That'd be risky.
It's not on the same level as the ones that we've mentioned, but if there was a sleeper team for this, I feel like the Colts could quietly have
it's funny.
A really good tandem.
I'm going to regret saying this because I hate the quarterback, but Minnesota's got to be one of them, too. You got Aaron Jones, you got Jefferson, and you got
what's his Jordan Addison?
Addison,
suspended.
Yeah, so did he get arrested yesterday?
It was the second time he's been cited for like a
DUI.
This one DUI. The last one was a significant speed, like criminal speeding.
Nice. That's always a good role. And then you got the quarterback is the one that I'm concerned about. But I mean, Atlanta, another one.
Yeah,
Drake London, Kirk Cousins, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson.
I can't do it with Drake London and Kyle Pitts.
I'm fine with Drake London because London looked good. He just had a crappy quarterback last year. I'm with you on the Kyle Pitts one.
London's going to have a monster season.
Yeah, I love London.
That's going to be a fun pick. And I think London's going to be their number one guy.
Dude, fantasy's going to be fun this year as long as you're not like BK and invite like 18 teams into the league because the waivers are going to be wild this year.
I think the one that I thought of, too, that was a risk, And then I just think it comes down to one single player, and I don't trust him to be healthy as the Rams. Stafford will put up points. Kyron Williams is one of the best rushers in the league, I think.
And Cooper.
And then Puka and Kupp. But the problem is like Kupp. He's such a injury risk to the point of Jonathan Taylor and Anthony
both of those
Richardson.
guys last year, and I decided to trade Puka when Cooper Kupp came back. Didn't work out super well. It was worth the risk. I tried, and I capitalized on the upside with Puka, and I was like, I'm going to go ahead and trade him, and I'm going to get a ton in return, and it just did.
Let's do the flip of that. Who's worse to have, Pittsburgh or the New York Giants?
I think the Giants. You got Malik Neighbors.
And that's
Daniel Jones.
Who's their running back?
Pittsburgh's pretty bad, dude.
I mean, I get it, but at least you have two receivers.
Two running backs.
And you got Najee Harris.
Pickens
and
I mean, Carolina's probably the worst one out of everybody, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Of those two that you said, I would probably say I'd rather have the Giants because even though I don't like Daniel Jones, he can at least
What? Broncos are
throw
pretty
a
rough.
quick screen to
Broncos are
neighbors.
pretty bad.
Broncos
God, there's a lot
really
of bad
rough.
teams.
God, now you said that, I'm just thinking in my head, I'm going to
New
get stuck
England might
with
be
Bo
the
Nix in our
worst.
league, aren't I?
I'm not playing
I
in
think
this
New
league.
England's the worst.
I'm not playing in this league if you have more than 12 teams.
Really?
Yeah. If you do 14 again, I'm
actually,
out.
I got the email yesterday. I need to send out the invite to everybody.
I'm so not playing for 14 or more teams. That
Oh, dude, I
sucked
had a lot of fun
year.
last year.
Yeah, of course you did.
Well, I can't help that you guys.
I'm feeling like I'm going to win it this year.
I mean, I got third place last year's at ours, so it's not like awful. I just hated 14 teams.
I was right there.
You were like ninth.
more challenging to.
Right on the outside looking in.
I think you didn't even make it to the consolation
I
one.
was seventh. 6 teams make
You
the
were
playoffs.
that
I was
high?
7th. Yeah.
No.
Didn't work out in the end. It was a game away.
Just keep it at 12 so we all can have fun.
I'm kind of like Miles Michaelis. I was a pitch away.
I'm
Yeah, the problem is you're exactly like Miles Michaelis, where
Yeah, I
you
was a
keep
pitch
saying
away.
it after it just keeps going wrong.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, do you agree with Oli Marmol's assessment of his team at the end of the first half of the season? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Classic Air Care, taking care of your HVAC needs. They've been doing so since 1926. And look, if you're in the market for purchasing a new HVAC system, of course, it's always a lot of money when you go down this road. I just had to go through this whole process, but the financing options are so important, and Classic Air Care offers those for you. But what I love about it is when you have them come out like I did, they walked me through what you need, what you don't need, pieces from your old unit that you're able to use. They're trying to make it as cost efficient for you as possible while giving you the best product available through Classic Air Care. So make sure you give them a call. They've got knowledgeable technicians that can come out, check things out for you. They're quick to respond, to get out to you, especially at this time of the year when it is so busy. I called them on a Saturday and they were out Monday morning checking out my unit. You can see the Google reviews that they have a 4.8 rating with hundreds of positive reviews on the customer service. Give them a call today. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you, or you can check them out online at classicaircare.com.
Terrence Near, Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Last night was Major League Baseball's home run derby as Teoscar Hernandez captured the crown, and tonight will be the All-Star game, and you can hear here on 101 ESPN as well. Pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock. First pitch will be at 7 as Paul Skeens gets the start for the National League, and Corbin Burns will be on the mound for the AL. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK. So Oli Marmol had an interesting comment over the weekend, Alex, about his assessment of the St. Louis Cardinals at the break. He's talking about how they've played better baseball. This is no longer a small sample size, and that he believes that this is a team that can compete against some of the best teams in Major League Baseball. Here's what he had to say when asked about how he would classify his team at the midway point of the 2024 season.
No secret, we started off in a bad spot. Dug ourselves a pretty good hole, and we're able to get out of it. We've played good baseball now for a couple months. The guys feel good about where they're at, and I talked a little bit about it earlier. I feel like it's just now actually starting to click. I know we've played well for the last 6 to 8 weeks, but it's offensively it's starting to come together, and we're stringing together a lot more quality plate appearances. So continue to play good defense and do what we're doing on the pitching side, and then our offense, it's coming together. I feel pretty good about it.
He was also asked by writers before the game, Alex, how he would assess his team, and he said, quote, "We're as good as anybody in the league," end quote. That's been the case, by the record, over the last 2 months. Since May 12th, they have the best record in the National League. They're top 3 in all of Major League Baseball. That's just the record. Like, wins, losses, we don't have to dive into it any further than that. I'm not trying to blow people away with sabermetrics. That's it. Do you agree with this assessment?
No, I don't. I think you're better than the teams that you're fighting in the same spot as you, but you're not better than any team in the National League because you've gotten beat by the Phillies, Dodgers, and Brewers every time you've played against them. You've got a minus 38 run differential. You're 23-28 against teams above 500. You're a good team. In my opinion, you're an average team. And if you're talking to me about all of the teams in the National League outside of the division winners, I would agree with everything he said. But to say that you're the better team, and yes, since Mother's Day, that is absolutely true. But I've also seen you lose to really bad teams. I've seen you lose to good teams. I've seen you be inconsistent. And although you are still finding ways to win, and I'm not taking that away from the Cardinals, I'm not being negative Nancy right now. I can't look at the Phillies, I can't look at the Dodgers, and I can't look at the Brewers and say, well, you're better than those teams, because you haven't shown me you're better than those teams yet this season. You've shown me you're better than the Mets, the Diamondbacks, the Padres, the Pirates, the Reds, the Giants, the Cubs, the Braves. But you haven't shown me you're better than the top 3 teams in the National League.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't think they can beat anybody. Like, if you told me they're going up against the Dodgers, I'd take the Dodgers. If they said they're going against Phillies, I'd take the Phillies. You know, Yankees, probably take the Yankees. Baltimore, probably take Baltimore, even though you swept them. I think when you look at where the St. Louis Cardinals are, I think they've separated themselves from what I would call the ugly middle of the National League, which is like the Cubs, the Reds, the Pirates. And I think you separated yourself to be at the top of the, or I'd say probably second in the middle of the National League that's actually contending for the playoffs, like the Mets, the Diamondbacks, the Padres, and the Braves. I think you're just right behind the Braves. That's Agreed. Where I think the Cardinals kind of slot in right now. And I think they can be, I don't know if they can make a move at the deadline to really change or alter my perspective. I think the best they can do is maybe alter how I feel when they compare against Atlanta and Milwaukee. I don't think they can do anything at the deadline that would really alter my approach of, oh, now you can compete with the Phillies, or, oh, now you can compete with the Dodgers.
Yeah, Phillies and Dodgers is going to come down to, are your best players playing the best?
Yeah, I mean, for the Dodgers, I think they're almost in a separate category to me from the Phillies. I think the Phillies are the best team in baseball. I think Phillies rock. They've got the pitching. They've got stars up and down their lineup that are hitting. Like, they are an excellent baseball team. They're well constructed. They play good defense for the most part. Like, that team is
And they're still
awesome.
doing it without Real Muto, correct?
And they're deep. Like, that team is really freaking good. The Dodgers are a little different to me. Like, Shohei's amazing. Freddie Freeman's amazing. When Mookie's healthy, he's amazing. The rest of their lineup is pretty light, man. Their rotation is broken and continues to crumble. And if Tyler Glasnow goes down, they are in a really bad place. He is for them what Sonny Gray is for you right now. And it's not as if Tyler Glasnow is like this symbol of health for the majority of his career. He's already at 109 innings pitched so far this year, which is great. Good for him, man. He's currently on the IL. I think that was mostly just, hey, let's buy a few extra days around the All-Star break. No harm, no foul. But you look at his history, 120 innings last year, 6 innings the year before that, 88, 57, 60, 55. Like, it has been a while since he's pitched this kind of innings in a season. He's probably going to reach a career high in innings about a month from now, like mid-August. So it's not a guarantee by any stretch that he's going to make it to the finish line. So they, to me, are put into a separate category. They're better than you because of their star power. But I wouldn't put it against, like, and I'm not just saying this about the Cardinals. It wouldn't shock me if the Brewers beat them in a series. It wouldn't shock me if the Braves beat them in the series. It wouldn't shock me if the Diamondbacks or the Padres beat them in a series. The Dodgers are more fragile than I think we probably gave them credit for coming into this season. And so for that reason, it's really just the Phillies to me that are in this tier one of their own that I don't know how the Cardinals beat them. But I say that about a lot of teams in recent seasons. And then weird stuff happens in the playoffs, and those behemoths go down. And David does end up beating Goliath a lot of the time in the Major League Baseball playoffs. So do I think that the Cardinals are as good as any team in baseball? No, I do not. I just disagree with the assessment. They have been for 2 months. I don't know that that will continue. I think you need to make upgrades to your rotation at the deadline to give yourself any chance. I think you need to add 1 or 2 bullpen arms at the deadline to give yourself a chance in the playoffs. But if you do all that stuff, can you beat the better teams? The teams that are, in my opinion, better than you? I think they can. I think the Brewers can. I think the Braves could. I think the Padres could. I think the Diamondbacks could. I think that's just where the National League is this year.
Yeah, I'm concerned about your pitching staff going into the second half, and if you don't upgrade it, it becomes even more of a problem. And looking at the teams around you right now, just as much as I believe the Cardinals could catch Milwaukee because Milwaukee has been struggling, I also believe the Mets and the Diamondbacks could catch the Cardinals and push them out of a wild card spot. So it would just be... It would be dishonest for me to look at the Cardinals and say you're better than any team in baseball or in the National League right now when I'm concerned that 2 or 3 teams might push you out of a playoff spot by the end of the season.
I think that's real, by the way. That should not be dismissed. A bad 2-week stretch by the Cardinals, and they could be 6th in the National League wildcard standings. Like right now, you are a half game up on the New York Mets. Mets are currently maintaining that 3rd wildcard spot. Dude, you're only 2 games up on the Pirates. Like, you have a bad series, you get swept by the Pirates, they jump you, boom, you're out of the playoffs.
Yep.
It can happen like that. It can happen super quick because there are so many teams that are jumbled into this mix. Like the Cubs. If the Cubs had come in over the weekend, and if you lost those 2 games in the doubleheader, we'd be talking about the Cardinals as being like, what, 2 games up on the Cubs?
Because if you would have lost 3 or 4, the Cubs would be within strike.
All 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
The Cubs would be right there with you. So there are so many teams in the Central that are competing in this wild card race that it does make it a little more up and down in terms of what could happen down the stretch. So what Alex is saying should not be dismissed. It should not be outright like diminished by any stretch. Cardinals are in a really anxious spot right now. They need to come out of the gates playing good baseball to convince Mo that he needs to add to this roster. And honestly, to convince fans that this is a team that's worth getting excited about down the stretch. Braves, Pittsburgh, those are the 2 teams that you're coming out in the second half, going up against head-to-head on the road. It's going to teach us a lot, dude, because those 2 teams are 2 teams that you're directly competing against for a wild card spot. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind here on 101 ESPN. Hey, you can hang out with Jamie Rivers, 101 ESPN, and Stella Artois on Thursday from 6 to 8 o'clock at Helen Fitzgerald. Stella Artois is partnering with Hot Ones to bring hot wings and hot trivia questions to St. Louis. If you'd like to sign up to play, visit Helen's to find out how to register and participate and compete in this competition. Or just come on and hang out Thursday night with Jamie Rivers, 101 ESPN, and Stella Artois, 6 to 8 o'clock at Helen Fitzgerald's. More information can be found at 101ESPN.com. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. It's always available at 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Alex, we got to talk about two things All-Star break related. One, the home run derby. I think they messed up the format. I think they had the perfect way to go about it in terms of the formatting of it, the bracket last year. Go with the 8 players, put them all paired up, and yes, it's going to be a little unfair sometimes, so be it. Tough luck. That's the way this goes, man. You get into the playoffs sometimes, you end up playing against the hottest team as the number 1 seed, and you've been off for 3 days. They just played in a wild card series. Tough luck. That's the way that it goes. It's life. I liked that version better. It took less time. And last night, we got to like almost 10 o'clock by the time this thing was over.
Yep.
It just took too long. There were players, the only guys that were remaining on the field by the time that thing ended were the teammates of the 2 players that were still participating. That tells you everything you need to know. Go back to the bracket style. I did like the bonus structure that they did this year, but otherwise it just lacked pop. It didn't move quick enough.
Baseball, and I think some of that was just name talent. Like you didn't have Shohei Ohtani or Bryce Harper performing in it. That's bringing more people to it, but that's kind of been the trend for the home run derby over these last couple of years. Baseball has done such an incredible job of making sure that their games are faster, so games aren't ending at 10:15, although I know T-Bone, the old traditionalist over here, loves himself some 4-hour baseball games.
No.
You got to take that and implement it into your all-star activities, because that home run derby should have been like 2 hours or 2.5 hours maybe. You can't push 3 hours for a home run derby. You're just dragging on, just like an all-star game later on tonight. That can't take 3.5 hours. You need to have it tight so people can enjoy it and get on with their day.
Yeah, I think the format, I agree. I like the bonus structure that they did.
Yep.
Kind of brings back the nostalgia of the old home run derby format.
Outs.
Yeah, with the outs. You can earn an extra one by hitting an absolute tank shot. But I agree. I felt like it dragged on for far too long. They need to go to the bracket because then you can eliminate guys faster.
Yep.
And it
just
just
what
moves
happens
a little better.
when you
8
are
to
the
4,
second
4 to
one
2.
up. If you end up beating him with like 30 seconds to go in your outing, like you finished it. You're done. You're good. I've moved on to the next round. There's no reason for me to keep going here. It just keeps things progressing a little quicker. So I think that's the smart way to go about it. If there's been one thing that we've seen from Rob Manfred, he's not afraid to admit a mistake. And I think he made a mistake here. Yeah. I think they should just go back to what they did last year. You tinkered with it in a way that was positive with the bonus structure. Tinkered with it with a way that was negative, in my opinion, with the way that they structured the first round. So maybe go back to that. T-Bone's big mad. Ryan Helsley has opted out of the All-Star game. He decided, I'm not going to play tonight. I'm not going to pitch. I don't want to be a part of it. No, he basically said, hey, listen, I want to be healthy for my
the
team.
All-Star game.
And therefore, I'm going to go ahead and opt out of this one. You can go ahead and replace me on the roster because I'm not going to throw any pitches in the All-Star game.
Just disrespect for baseball and history.
I have no issues with this whatsoever. In fact, I kind of respect it. Like, if you're Ryan Helsley and you know how important you are to this team in the second half and you say, I want a full week to just rest and relax because of how much I've been used, and it's really the first time that he's been legitimately healthy and great for the Cardinals in his career, I'm good with it, man. I got no problems with that whatsoever. In fact, I kind of like it.
Just go out there and throw an inning, for crying out loud. You're healthy. You're there. You were elected by your peers. You should be willing to pitch in an All-Star game for an inning. I have a bit of an issue with it.
No, not a bit of an issue. No, stop it. Don't tamp that down.
Fine. I have a freaking issue with this.
You are boycotting the All-Star game tonight because of it.
I hate players that elect to go this route because he's healthy. He could throw an inning. It wouldn't hurt him. He should be out there throwing an inning tonight, or at least be active. He could. Worst case scenario or best case scenario for him was he went to the manager, kept it quiet, and said, hey, I don't think I'm available tonight.
Well, then that means that another guy that could have been on the roster and had that moment that you're talking about that wanted to be there doesn't get the opportunity.
You know what? It shouldn't even be a conversation because he should be pitching tonight.
I think if the dude wasn't setting a Major League Baseball record for saves and innings pitched in the first half of the season, I could understand your argument with it because, like, you were voted in. It's pretty obvious Ryan Helsley was an all-star this season. So for me, you didn't need to pitch in the All-Star game to be an All-Star. You pitched like an All-Star, and now rest because you're going to need that All-Star.
You got the honor.
Opting out when you're
by your
healthy
peers.
should take that All-Star away.
It's ridiculous.
Should not be on his baseball reference page. Altuve, who's actually hurt, can have it on his baseball reference page.
The other big story from yesterday was the national anthem prior to the game. We had our fun with it at the beginning of the show today as well. Ingrid Andress has since released a statement saying, I'm not going to BS you guys. I was drunk last night. I'm checking myself into a facility today to get the help that I need. That was not me last night. I apologize to Major League Baseball, all the fans, and to this country that I love so much for the rendition. So that's your update on that storyline as well. We talked about the Cardinals draft with Eric Longenhagen. If you missed that conversation, check it out on the podcast page. He told us a lot about their number one selection this year in the draft, number 7 overall in the first round, in their prospect pool that currently exists for the Cardinals. Fastlane going to be squaring off against the Rizzuto Show without us this time, so potentially they have a chance to win. At this year's softball home run derby, it's hosted by the O'Fallon Hoots. It's coming up next Saturday, July 27th at CarShield Field in O'Fallon, Missouri. Fast pitch home run derby that night as well. It's going to feature Rick Ankiel, Brian Jordan, and more MLB alumni. GA tickets on sale right now. You can check out the details at 101ESPN.com. It's all brought to you by Swiss Air Heating and Cooling, Faster House, and by Zwickle Light. For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Thighs and his butt are so much bigger and stronger now.